Naofumi was an ugly, disgusting, lonely loser who wasted all of his worthless life playing video games and gambled all of his family's life savings away. But while he was reading fanfics at the library, a mysterious book began glowing before his eyes, teleporting him to another world where a bunch of weird mages had attempted to summon him. Along with him, he saw 3 other ugly losers: Rem the worthless sword hero, Motoyasu the dumbass spear hero, and Itsuki the useless bow hero. After the mages introduced them before the king, he told them that they were summoned to save the world from the waves, swarms of monsters that would destroy the world if the 4 cardinal heroes don't put a stop to them. So to aid them on their journey, the king gathered the strongest warriors to join their parties, but not a single one of them joined Naofumi's party. Realizing that he would die instantly without the ability to attack monsters with his shield, the hottest girl, Mine, offered to join Naofumi's party. However, because he only had 1 party member, the king gave him more coins than the other heroes, and all of them began their adventure. After destroying all the slimes in the field, he began absorbing all of their remnants, allowing his shield to level up. But before finishing the day off, Mine took him back to the blacksmith where he tried to wield a sword, but his holy weapon blocked him from wielding it. So instead, Mine told him to buy himself some cheap armor since his shield would protect him, while she bought the most expensive armor in the shop, and promised to pay him back however he wanted. After she made his simp ass broke, he took her to the fanciest restaurant in the town, where she begged him to drink PG grape juice with her, and asked to spend the night with him. However, Naofumi's dumbass fumbled the bag and apologized because he only had a single bed in his room. So he left to sleep, realizing that he only had 200 silver coins left, but decided to hide them beneath his shield, and laid down, excited for the rest of his days in a different world. But when he woke up the next morning, he saw that all of his equipment was robbed, and as he tried waking Mine up, a bunch of guards surrounded him and threw him in front of the king with their spears pointed at him. Before his eyes, Mine began hiding behind the spear hero, telling everyone that Naofumi had pinned her down, and began developing plot with her before she could escape to Motoyasu's room. As Naofumi tried rejecting any of that happening, he realized that Motoyasu was the thief wearing his chainmail armor. However, Motoyasu said that Mine had gifted him the armor as a present last night, and told Naofumi that he deserved to have his neck slashed. The only thing that Naofumi wondered was why Mine would ever accuse him, so while no one else noticed, she smirked at his face and mocked him, making him realize that she had been faking everything just to steal all his money. Angry at how hard she ruined his life, and thinking that they'd all plotted his downfall just because he's the weak, useless shield hero, he screamed for them to send him back to his world. However, the king rejected his request, as summoning new heroes is only possible after all 4 current heroes are killed, so his only option would be to defeat all of the oncoming waves. But while all of them were disgusted at the idea of working with him, Naofumi promised to defeat all of the waves on his own, and threw all the guards off him, saying that he'll never need their help. Before leaving, he threw all his remaining money at Mine's gold digging ass, and when Motoyasu tried stopping him, Naofumi told him that he was too weak to waste time, and left as a mysterious spy watched over him. With that, all of his money, respect, and trust was gone, losing it all. While traveling around town, all citizens began avoiding him, and even the blacksmith was about to knock him out for what he did to the girl. But after seeing the glare in his eyes, he decided to let go, and instead offered him a robe, asking to pay him back whenever he could. All alone in the field, Naofumi began destroying all the slimes, punching them one by one until he finally gathered a pile of their skin and reached level 2. As he stared at the slime sadly, he wished he still had his phone to play the best RPG game of all time, AFK Arena. Because although he hated the slimes of this world, his favorite slime, Rimuru, was going to be added into AFK Arena along with Shuna during the new collaboration event. And with both of them being added as dimensional heroes, Rimuru can be added to your team as an intellectual mage to release his broken output DPS, while Shuna will be an intellectual support, allowing you to grow your team exponentially using the resonance system to create an army stronger than even Rimuru's village. And just like Rimuru's story was about him traveling to another world and becoming overpowered through his broken predation skill, you will also be able to grow rapidly and become powerful while playing AFK Arena. But if that wasn't enough, this collaboration event will also bring the 180 summon activity that will guarantee you an SP hero. So if you ever wanted to jump into an isekai and become overpowered instead of being a useless loser like Naofumi, all you will need to do is log in every day to level up your team and slowly become the strongest gamer in this world. So what are you waiting for? Download AFK Arena through the link in my description to create the strongest team, and maybe you'll even get a girl who isn't a gold digger framing you for your money like Naofumi's ugly face.
Damn!
While traveling back through the town to meet the trader, the merchant tried scamming him by paying only 1 copper coin for his 20 slime skins. However, now Fumi knew he was selling them to much more for other adventurers, so he grabbed his face and threatened to give him a new face if he wouldn't buy them for the fair market value. So the merchant agreed to pay him fairly, and while the blacksmith was back at his shop, he saw the 5 copper coins now Fumi promised. For countless nights, he began sleeping in the middle of the field, and eventually found expensive herbs, and after absorbing them, he unlocked a new leaf shield to use. And with his new shield, he was able to enhance the quality of the herbs, so when he met a pharmacist at night, he was able to sell them for a high price. With everything he had, he would buy the cheapest food he could afford. But one day, 3 worthless morons ambushed him in the alley, commanding him to give them his money. However, now Fumi turned around and shoved a slime onto one of them, while blocking the knife of the other bandit with his shield. All 3 of them began running away, but even after they went away, now Fumi realized he was powerless, as he can't ever get stronger without killing monsters, and he can't ever kill monsters with just his shield. Seeing his frustration, Dr. Eggman's scamming cousin told now Fumi that he had a very interesting proposal for him, and told now Fumi to follow him only if he was interested. As they walked back to his hideout, the merchant told him that he was here to offer him some slaves, telling him that slaves would never lie or betray their masters. Because of the curse placed on them, they will always obey their owner's commands, and while he looked through all of them, he saw a little demi-human girl who looked sick inside. The worthless slave trader told him that she was the cheapest slave he had, as she was both physically and mentally ill because her previous owner loved torture, because she would likely die soon. The slave trader was willing to sell her for 30 silver coins, so now Fumi decided she was going to be the one he buys. Inside the slave merchant's room, he drew a sigil across her chest, and now Fumi saw her status appearing as part of his party. Before leaving, now Fumi asked for her name, screaming at her to stop her disgusting mouth from coughing. So she told him that her name was Raphtalia, and he forcefully grabbed her away. As he walked away, the trader was shocked that now Fumi really chose her, as if it was destined by fate to happen once again. Inside the blacksmith's shop, now Fumi gave him 6 silvers for a weapon that she could use, and told her to draw her knife at the slime hiding under him. But when she was too scared to react, he began activating her curse to force her into submission, so she rushed forward to stab the slime, but was too weak to deal any damage. Still, now Fumi screamed at her to try harder, and when she rushed forward this time, she blew the slime up, gaining XP. As she sat on the floor, he told her that she will become his sword as he protected her, and left the blacksmith to go to a food place. When he went inside, he asked for the cheapest food he had, and asked for Raphtalia to get the same food the kid behind her is eating. When she wondered why he would get something for her, he told her that it looked like she wanted it, and when she got the food, her eyes lit up, wondering if she could really eat something so nice. Tears began flowing through her eyes as she ate, but now Fumi realized that he really still can't taste anything. Later that day, they began farming the slimes once again, and once they were done, now Fumi's shield began leveling up. At the same time, Raphtalia wondered who he was, so he told her that he was the shield hero. After hearing those words, she remembered her family asking her who her favorite hero was, and when she said it was the shield hero, they were glad, as he was the only one who ever treated demi-humans kindly. When she asked for his name, he told her that it was now Fumi and handed her medicine to cure her sickness away. But it was more disgusting than his face. As he kept watching throughout the night, Raphtalia dreamed about the day her parents tried protecting her from a 3-headed dog, and threw her into the ocean as they were devoured. Waking up screaming for her parents, now Fumi tried holding her closely to calm her down. The following morning, the pharmacist told now Fumi that he'd make way more money selling medicine instead of herbs, so now Fumi asked if he could borrow some of his tools. Outside the shop, Raphtalia was watching a bunch of kids playing with a ball, but even though she pretended like she'd never want one, seeing her tail wag made him realize she was lying, so he decided to buy her one of them. Before the night approached, he tried buying a room, but when the merchant was hesitant, he threatened to make his face even uglier than it already was. As days passed, now Fumi kept taking care of Raphtalia and giving her medicine, along with selling everything else that remained. Slowly, they began diving deeper into the forest, but when a rabbit appeared, now Fumi tried making Raphtalia stab the rabbit. However, she didn't want to make the rabbit bleed, and as her curse activated, now Fumi told her that he wouldn't be able to keep taking care of her if she was unable to attack. After all, the waves are going to destroy this world. But when she heard that he was going to defeat the waves, her resolve strengthened, and she began charging towards the rabbit, ending it in that instant. She told him that she wouldn't be weak and that she'd do anything to stay by his side. That evening, when they returned to the weapons shop, Naofumi decided to buy her a bigger sword to prepare her for tougher quests. So the smith showed them a short iron sword, telling them that it was a perfect fit for her. Realizing he was fast returning to being a brokey, Naofumi decided to ask if there was a nearby village they could earn some quick cash. Feeling sorry for his broke ugly ass face, the smith directed them to the nearest village. When they arrived in the village, Naofumi decided to sell his rabbit skin to a merchant and asked for directions to the nearest gold mine. The man told them that there was a coal pit nearby and said that he could make some good money from selling the ores inside. Inside a barn, Naofumi decided to check his stats on the system. Realizing his shield had acquired exclusive effect and skills, he decided to reveal this new ability. At once, his shield transformed into a rope shield. Looking to discover its full abilities, he cast an airstrike shield before him and was surprised even at the sight of it. However, when Raphtalia appeared before him, he pretended like he was not impressed and suggested that they leave immediately. As they headed down the tunnel, Raphtalia wondered just what she could call him. However, Naofumi did not give two shits about it and told her to call him whatever she wants. When they were deep inside the cave, Naofumi began hammering the crystals. When he was done, he noticed that Raphtalia was shivering in fear and watched as a two-headed monster appeared before their eyes. Raphtalia realized that this monster looked exactly like the three-headed beast that isekai'd her parents, and as the memories continued flashing across her mind, she was totally paralyzed in fear. As the beasts hurried to devour her, Naofumi narrowly rescued her and dived into the water. As he tried climbing up the mountain, Raphtalia told him that a similar monster had eliminated her family, and Naofumi realized that this was why she cried in her sleep every night. Before long, the beast appeared before them, and Naofumi realized that it was a level 15 monster. He told Raphtalia that this was her chance to avenge her parents. After letting out those words, he charged at the monster, and as he blocked one with his shield, the second bit into his shoulder. Realizing he was about to meet his end, he told her to kill the beast immediately, but she was too chicken to even move. He tried commanding her, but even still, she was too afraid to stand. Realizing this was hopeless, he told her to run away before she was devoured, and said that she would finally be free once he was dead. However, she remembered how her parents were devoured before her eyes, and how Naofumi had saved her and had been a good guy from the very start. Afraid of wandering alone for the rest of her life, she charged forward and stabbed one on the head, but was flung aside. With the beast turning its attention on her, Naofumi cast a shield to protect her, and utilizing the opportunity, she stabbed it deep inside the heart, killing it in that instant. At that moment, their EXP increased, and Raphtalia rushed to hold him, happy to see him alive. As she cried in his arms, Naofumi realized that she had chosen to call him by his name. After a few weeks, Naofumi had managed to upgrade his shield, and was able to unlock several skills and abilities. With the wave slowly approaching, Naofumi thought it was about time they upgrade their equipment. However, when they arrived at the weapons shop that evening, the smith began to wonder how Raphtalia had grown into a hot demi-human within a few weeks. However, Naofumi thought she had always looked like the same short ugly rat, and wondered why their village was filled with lolicons hitting on her. Raphtalia began telling the smith that they came to buy armor for Naofumi. After he was injured by the beast, Raphtalia had decided to make it her life's mission to protect him at all times. So the smith told them that he would make a new armor fitting only for Naofumi. That night in a restaurant, Naofumi tried ordering a kid's lunch for Raphtalia, but she screamed at him, saying that she was now a grown-ass woman and would only eat what the grown-ups eat. The following day, after wearing his custom-made barbarian armor, Naofumi noticed that all the people were gathered in the street, afraid of the impending arrival of the waves. When he wondered how they would predict the arrival of the waves, the smith told him to visit the city, where he would find the dragon hourglass that would teleport them to the scene of the waves when the countdown completes. That evening, Naofumi decided to visit the church, and as he appeared before the hourglass, his shield directed a light towards it, and he realized that the waves would be arriving the following day. At that moment, the other heroes arrived, and Madoyasu wondered if he was still the same disgusting bummer they all remember. Deciding to ignore him, Naofumi began to leave, but realized that Madoyasu was trying to score with his girl, and told Raphtalia to be careful around him as he was known all around the city as a disgusting perv. Angered by his words, Naofumi confronted him, nearly knocking his teeth out, but decided to remain a non-violent protagonist and began to lead Raphtalia away. That night in their room, Raphtalia tried asking what happened between him and the other heroes, but Naofumi told her to mind her business. Since he left the castle without a single soul believing his side of the story, He had decided never to speak of it again. The following day, as all the warriors prepared for the arrival of the waves, Raphtalia began telling Naofumi that she was proud to stand by his side as his fighter. She told him that she would continue to be his sheath whenever he wishes to rest his long sword, and would stay by his side forever. As the remaining sand trickled down in the hourglass, the skies turned red and all the heroes vanished into the forest. Before their eyes, the wave of catastrophe appeared in the sky, and before long, alien monsters began to invade the world. But Raphtalia told him that the waves were heading for the village they visited a few weeks ago. Realizing no one else could save them, Naofumi began running towards the village. At the same time, the zombie had already invaded the village, but Naofumi saved a man from meeting his doom, and Raphtalia slayed it instantly. With little time to spare, Naofumi told Raphtalia to evacuate the villagers, and said that he would offer himself up as bait to lure the monsters away. As Naofumi ran towards the villagers, he punched a zombie, but his blow was softer than a 10-year-old's hand. He told them to run away from the village, and offered to lead the monsters away. As he saved a villager with his airstrike shield, he protected another with a shield prison and continued running off. With the monsters chasing him, he slid under a fire and re-emerged with the flame. Eager and desperate, he tried drawing their attention with the fire. As he began running off, he thought he was a useless moron for choosing to fight for this world. When he grew exhausted, he realized that the monsters were just too many, so he thought of leading them to a tower. Using an airstrike shield, he jumped over a zombie and began climbing up the tower. At the top of the tower, he began smacking the bell to draw all of their attention. As they began climbing up, he decided to make good use of this chance and doused the tower with fuel, immediately torching it. As he jumped towards the ground, he tried catching himself on a stick but crashed right into a house. Before his eyes, he watched the whole tower light up in flames and crash to the ground. At that moment, the villagers returned to support him. One villager told him that they were determined to fight for their village, with him having inspired their own bravery. At that instant, a giant zombie tried ending him, but Naofumi managed to protect him just in time. As it turned its attention to the other villagers and tried ending them in that instant, Naofumi blocked again, telling the villagers to run away because they were no match for this ugly monster. At that moment, Raphtalia appeared, and working together with Naofumi, they managed to take down the monster. Immediately, flares began flying towards the sky, and as it exploded into a light, fires started falling towards the village. Realizing they would be burned by the flames, Naofumi pulled Raphtalia and managed to protect both of them with his shield. When the knights arrived, having cast the flames, they were delighted that all the monsters had been obliterated from the village. Immediately, she flew at the leader, but he blocked her sword instantly. She demanded to know why they tried to kill her man, and threatened to execute them in return. At that moment, several monsters appeared before the soldiers. As Naofumi saved the leader from a fatal isekai, Raphtalia rushed towards the zombie and split his head apart. At Naofumi's command, Raphtalia began slashing, cutting, and slaying her way through the zombies, before jumping high and slaying another giant. Meanwhile, on the far side of the forest, the other heroes began unleashing their powers on a monster lion, as Madoyasu cast a lightning spear to slay it. With all the monsters destroyed, the skies cleared up in an instant. Having been away from the real battle, Madoyasu thought the waves was a mere cakewalk after all. Inside the village, everyone gathered to thank Naofumi for saving them from total elimination. The villagers tried telling him that he would always be their local hero, but he told them to f*** off. After they left, Raphtalia became sad, wishing her parents had been rescued the same way they managed to save this village from annihilation. As she began to cry, Naofumi tried calming her down. That night in the castle, as everyone celebrated their victory, Naofumi thought he was in a hellhole, and would surely not have come except for the cash reward the king had promised to give out to the heroes. As Raphtalia walked past Madoyasu, he tried to meet her, but Mind stopped him and began whispering some very evil suggestions. Raphtalia appeared before Naofumi and tried persuading him to taste the food, but he told her that he would rather drink his own vomit. Before his eyes, he realized he had acquired a new ability, which luckily helped him to teleport with Raphtalia to the scene of the waves invasion. Just then, Raphtalia arrived with food, determined not to take no for an answer, and quickly gave him a taste of her cake. Seeing this, Madoyasu's jealousy began to grow, so he tossed his glove at Naofumi and challenged him to a duel. With Mind having told him that Raphtalia was his slave, he said that he intends to free her from her slave contract, even though he was only hoping to see her switch over to his side. Naofumi told him that it was perfectly legal to own a slave, and began to leave anyway, but a knight stopped him, and the king commanded him to accept the challenge. Realizing this shit returned south, Raphtalia tried telling them that she follows Naofumi willingly, but a knight muffled her voice, and the fucking king said that she has been brainwashed. Realizing he was about to lose his only companion, Naofumi tried reclaiming her, but the knights drew their sword, determined to stop him. As Matoyasu appeared before him, he wondered if he would chicken out of the duel and run off, but Naofumi threatened to destroy him. That night, before the duel, Naofumi tried taking a weapon but it electrocuted him, and the system warned him not to take any unassigned weapons. As they faced off, Matoyasu told him to surrender before he wipes his ugly ass across the arena floor. However, Naofumi thought action speaks louder than words, and decided to activate a new shield, readying himself for the fight. With Matoyasu ready to destroy him, he began charging towards him, and rammed his shield continually but could not even cause a scratch. Naofumi told him that he was a sore loser, and said that he has no chance at beating him since he can't even pierce his shield. Looking to put in more effort, Matoyasu activated his Chaos Spear, and began attacking with relentless onslaught until Naofumi was exposed, allowing him to slit his arm. Determined to make it even, Naofumi began running towards him, and successfully punched him in the gut. As Matoyasu realized that a balloon was sucking on his meat, Naofumi revealed the other balloons that were stuck to him. This was his secret weapon, and since he has no offensive attacks, he made good use of them to leverage his weakness. Angered to see him fighting back, Matoyasu thought of ending the duel with a powerful jab, but Naofumi shielded it, and knocked him away with his two-headed dog shield. Before he knew it, Naofumi launched an airstrike shield at him, and trapped him inside a shield prison. Inside the prison, Matoyasu realized that a few balloons were trapped with him. As he was unable to escape, all the people began to call Naofumi a useless coward that was too useless to fight. So he decided to release him, and told him to surrender, but Matoyasu told him that he would rather walk to China. Pleased with his response, Naofumi told him that he would destroy his pretty face so he would never get laid for the rest of his life. However, just as he was about to begin the facial reconstruction, a mighty wind blew him away, and he realized that Mine had used her magic on him. Angered by her cheating ass, he thought of destroying her at that moment, but narrowly dodged Matoyasu's spear, and successfully blocked all consequent attacks. As Matoyasu drew his lightning spear, he unleashed it straight at Naofumi, successfully penetrating his shield and knocking him out. With Naofumi weakened from the attack, Matoyasu declared himself the winner. However, as he began to leave, Naofumi accused him of cheating, and said that Mine had attacked him from behind. But everyone was silent in the arena. This made Naofumi think he was hallucinating, and soon began to wonder if everyone was f***ing dead in the eyes. Before his eyes, the king began to congratulate Matoyasu, and at that moment, Naofumi realized that Mine was actually a princess. All this time, they had tried to destroy him just because the king intended to hook up his daughter with Matoyasu, and even the duel had been a total setup from the very start. He was angry that they had summoned him into their disgusting world, and even still, had decided to hate him for doing no wrong at all. This made him angrier, and he thought of destroying every person inside the arena. Just then, a minister said that Raphtalia would now be freed from her slave curse, and all the people wondered why Naofumi's ugly face was summoned into their world anyway. And before his eyes, they revealed Raphtalia's crest and doused it with a potion that caused it to vanish. At that instant, the system revealed that his contract with her had been terminated. As Mine led her away, Naofumi's anger grew tremendously, and he threw his shield far away, but it vanished and reappeared on his arm. As he screamed his anger, saying that this entire world could rot in hell for all he cares, his curse series activated in that instant. At the same time, Raphtalia smacked Matoyasu, wondering why he had to stick his ugly nose where it did not belong. She told him that Naofumi was a good master to her, and that he only activated her curse when she was too afraid to fight. Mine thought she was being disrespectful to the love of her life, and tried smacking some sense into her, but Itsuki and Ren arrived at that moment. As Ren demanded to know why Mine had cheated, Matoyasu wondered what the f*** was going on, but Ren knew better and told her that they were all unwilling to speak up because they were afraid of the king. As Raphtalia approached Naofumi, she tried telling him that she was still the same person as before, but he told her to f*** off. As she tried to touch him, he smacked her away, telling her to leave since their contract was now broken. However, she could see deep into his heart, and began telling him that she believes him, and would remain by his side forever just as she promised. As he grew angry, thinking he was hated because of his f***ing shield, he tried ripping it away but she stopped him. She told him that the shield was more powerful than he thought, and that it was the only reason they managed to save the village from total obliteration. Naofumi told her that he was a bad guy, and never intended to save the village, but Raphtalia knew better and decided to hold him. She told him that she could see into his heart, and even though he pretends to be bad, she knew that he was a good guy. She told him that she was his sword and would follow him to the ends of the earth. Hearing her words, now Fumin realized that it was all he had ever wanted to hear. But then he realized that she had told him these exact words right before the waves arrived. She told him that she would stay with him forever, and before his eyes, he finally saw her true grown-up form, telling him that she was no longer the kid he remembers, and asked to stay by his side for the rest of her life, as they held each other close. However, Motoyasu thought that Raphtalia was still under a spell, and wondered just how he could break them up. But Itsuki told him that he was either blind or the greatest moron he had ever seen.
It's facts! It's facts! It's not facts. These sites are not facts.
The following day, Raphtalia gave Naofumi some leftover food from the castle kitchen. As he ate it, he realized that this was the first time he could ever taste food again. When Naofumi was confused as to who she really was, she told him that her clan grow as quickly as they level up, and that this had been the reason why they were considered inhuman, because they grow 4 times as fast as a regular kid. That day in the castle, the king announced that Motoyasu would be paid 4,000 silver for fending off the waves, and rewarded Itsuki and Ren with over 3,000 silvers. However, when it was Naofumi's turn, he decided to pay him 500 silver, but before he could even take it, he said that he deserved no reward, having lost his duel to Motoyasu. At this point, Itsuki thought he was starting to overdo it, and said that he would have won the duel fairly and squarely without any interference. Hoping to clear her name, Mine began saying that Motoyasu had won the duel fairly, but Itsuki was having none of her bullshit, and called her a disgusting cheater. Ren told them that Naofumi had saved the nearby village when the waves invaded, and believed that he deserved to be rewarded even for that good deed. Realizing he had no other choice, the king commanded that Naofumi be paid the least possible amount, and told him to get his horrendous face out of the castle. As Naofumi grew angry at his words, Raphtalia told him that they were better off leaving this hellhole anyway. So Naofumi agreed, realizing it was probably true, and they began to leave together. That day, they decided to return to the slave merchant to activate a new slave contract on Raphtalia. When he was done, Naofumi discovered that he had acquired a slave user's shield. As he noticed a few monster eggs, the merchant offered to sell one, telling him that it would make some good meat in the future. Thinking it might come in handy, Naofumi decided to buy one. When they arrived in a medicine store, the owner gave Naofumi a book of herb recipes, calling it a gift for saving the nearby village. Afterwards, they visited a magic shop, and the old lady gave them a grimoire, saying that it was a gift for rescuing her grandchild at the village. She told him that if he successfully studied the book, he would learn as many spells as he desires that would be useful in battle. That evening, Naofumi realized that he really needs a Google Translator. Raphtalia suggested that they learn the language together, and since there was still a month before another wave's invasion, Naofumi agreed. The following morning in the village, Naofumi and Raphtalia watched as the dragon egg hatched. Immediately, the bird flew on top of Naofumi, taking him for her parent. And as the days passed, he took on that role like a champ, and basically watched the bird increase in size within a few days. By the end of the week, the bird had doubled in size, and Naofumi thought his growth boost skill probably helped, so he decided to name her Philo. At that moment, they discovered that another hero had appeared in the village. Inside the square, Mine began telling the villagers that the king had declared Motoyasu the new lord of the village, and said that in their efforts to rebuild the place, they would begin taxing everyone for their entry and exit into the village. The villagers thought this was the worst possible announcement they could hope for, and a man said that they could barely have 2 meals a day. However, Naofumi went on to ask Mine,
"Are you delusional? Do you suffer from a mental illness?"
He said that the taxes were ridiculous, and that there was no possible way the villagers could afford it. As the villagers began to show their support, Mine commanded her soldiers to draw their spears. Before they could attack, a mysterious group appeared before her and handed her a scroll. Angered by the words inside, she decided to challenge Naofumi to a race, saying that the winner would take charge of the village. Afraid of losing their village, the villagers begged Naofumi to accept the challenge, but he thought it was another trap from Mine. As he prepared for the race, Motoyasu started bragging about his dragon, calling it the monster version of Usain Bolt. But Philo grew angry and kicked him away. As he landed on a haystack, he realized that she narrowly missed his plot-developing tool, and Mine was afraid that his plot-making days might be over forever. As the race began, both heroes took off immediately, and Philo gave Motoyasu some distance, blowing dust into his face. However, Mine's soldier cast a spell and created a hole in the ground. As now Fumi was too late to notice, the bird slipped, allowing Motoyasu to take the lead. However, this only made Philo more determined, and she soon regained the lead. Even so, Mine would not accept defeat, so her soldier cast a new spell to slow her down, allowing Motoyasu to take the lead once more. But Philo was bent on winning and breezed past his dragon, even blowing dust on the princess. Desperate for victory, the soldier cast another spell to increase Motoyasu's speed, but Philo was no quitter. As Motoyasu moved into his way, now Fumi discovered the holes before him, so using his airstrike shield, they jumped over the hole and continued charging towards the finish lane. Raphtalia and the villagers tried showing support, and even Mine was afraid that this race might go south. As the blood rushed from the adrenaline, Philo managed to win the race. With the villagers happy about the victory, Philo suddenly doubled in size, leaving even now Fumi in shock. At the sight of this, Mine thought she could use it to her advantage, and began to accuse now Fumi of cheating, but he called her the cheater. When she tried to deny it, the mysterious group appeared again, and the leader said that they had sensed a strange magic around the race course. Having no other lies to tell, Mine decided to accept defeat, saying that they would be returning to the castle immediately. Hoping to regain some self-esteem, Motoyasu told now Fumi that he allowed him to win on purpose, but now Fumi called him a useless moron and told him to give his life a purpose. That evening, the village chief told him that they had started saving up to reward him, but now Fumi told him that he didn't want their money because they needed everything they could save up in rebuilding their village. As he began to wonder what else he could demand for, Philo pointed at a carriage, choosing it as their prize. So that evening, they began riding away on the carriage. When Raphtalia became sick from all the motioning, she hurried out to vomit. That night, now Fumi decided to lay her by the fire, hoping that she would feel better in the morning. As he looked at the traveling pass the village chief had given him, he remembered that he told him they would be allowed to travel across the country without paying a dime, so he began to wonder if they could begin a part-time traveling business. Just then, Philo decided to cuddle up with him, but when he woke up the following morning, he found a little girl by his side. As he backed away immediately, he wondered who she was, but she told him that she was hungry. That morning, when they arrived at the weapons shop, the smith wondered just how many wives now Fumi intends to have in his harem. When Philo noticed the food, she told them that she was hungry, so the smith asked her to take a bite. At that instant, Philo transformed into the bird and swallowed everything in one gulp. After her meal, Raphtalia began telling the smith that the slave merchant had told them about Philo's clan, and had said that a few of the birds often hatched as the king or queen of their flock, and that they often have the ability to take on a humanoid form. On top of that, they needed a special crest before they could be tamed, but when they tried to give Philo the crest, in hopes of forming a new contract with now Fumi, she had badly resisted, before eventually agreeing. When the smith demanded to know what they really wanted from him, he asked the smith for a special kind of dress that would be a perfect fit for transforming species, but he told them to visit a dressmaker because he was most definitely not one. When they arrived at the dress shop, now Fumi told the dressmaker that they wished to make Philo a dress that would not rip apart whenever she transforms. The dressmaker told them that they would need magic threads to sew transforming clothes for her, and said that the cloth would be made out of Philo's own mana, because it was the only way to create a solid connection with the material. However, since they had no magic threads, they decided to visit the magic shop. But the owner told them that she had run out of magic gemstones. She told them that the stones were rare to come by, but promised to find them within a few days. That day, as they began traveling around the village, hoping to earn some quick cash from running errands, they came across a villager, and Raphtalia thought it might be their lucky day after all. The man told her that he was heading for the village so he could help his mother with a special medication. Realizing his prayers just got answered, now Fumi offered to give him a ride for 1 silver. However, the man told them that he was worse than a brokey, so now Fumi told him that he could repay him with some food instead. Hoping to arrive faster, they decided to ditch the carriage, and Philo took off at once. As they began approaching the entry, the guard asked for their fee, but now Fumi threw his pass at him, and called himself a VIP. After arriving inside the village, now Fumi offered to give the sick lady her potion, and told the man to go count the stars or something. When the man was gone, he increased the power of the potion and gave her the drink. At that instant, her spirit revived, and she got up like she was never sick. So the man gave him food that was worth about the same amount as agreed. As now Fumi rode away, he thought he might become a millionaire soon, realizing he could begin charging broke travelers for their food and eventually sell them for cash. So as the days passed, he continued with this process and tried to study the grimoire every night. A few days later, as he began transporting a new merchant, the man told him that he had grown famous around the villages, as they had begun calling him their savior for healing sick people with his healing ability. At that moment, they realized that several bandits were standing in their way, and the leader told them that they intend to rob the merchant inside. However, Raphtalia decided to take his place and cast a mirage spell that made her invisible, so as Philo cast a tornado at the bandits, she finished them off in an instant. With the bandits all bound up, the leader began telling them that another traveler had informed them about the merchant, and had said that they would make $1 million from robbing him. When now Fumi wondered just what they should do with these scums, the merchant suggested that they hand them over to the local guards. However, the bandits thought they would easily walk away, and the leader told now Fumi that everyone would believe that he was actually the villain, as the castle had done a great job of naming him the most useless hero in the world. Realizing he wouldn't be coming out on top, now Fumi threatened to eliminate them all, and told Philo to prepare her belly. Afraid of meeting their doom, they began to beg for their lives. So now Fumi agreed to spare them in exchange for all of their valuables. So that evening, the bandits began to surrender their loot, and Raphtalia thought they had become bandits themselves. However, the merchant told her that it was a perfect deal, and decided to make now Fumi his inspirational hero. Even so, now Fumi would not be flattered by his words, and demanded an additional reward from the merchant. The man told him that he was willing to share his knowledge and connections with him, and said that it would be worth more than gold and silver. That night, the man began showing him how to craft gems and imbue them with energy. And along the way, now Fumi managed to pick up a few spells, and within a few days, he was able to craft gemstones on his own. And by the end of the week, he had found a place in the traders group, and learned that Motoyasu had saved a dying village by discovering a legendary crop that grows even during famine. On the other hand, he discovered that Ren had traveled through the southeast, looking to slay new monsters. On top of that, the merchant had offered him a parting gift of a large portion of his possessions. When now Fumi showed the deed to a mining chief, he told him that he has struck a gold mine, and offered to provide him any gemstone he wants. Now Fumi told him that he wants the magic thread gemstones, so that he could at least make Philo a real dress. So the following day, they began traveling to the site, having received directions from the chief. Before long, they arrived at the ancient site. When they arrived at the end of the cave, they found an empty chest, and wondered what may have been kept inside. As Philo pointed them towards a new passage, they began to head deeper inside. Shortly, they discovered a monster's footprint, and the magic lady told them that it was a dangerous beast. But at that moment, his torch went out, and they began hearing mysterious voices. The magic lady told them not to listen, and said that it was merely a trap to divert their attention. Immediately, she cast an anti-bind spell to break the illusion. As they discovered several bats before them, Philo cast a wind to blow them away. With all the bats dead, now Fumi decided to absorb them in his shield, and soon acquired a new skill. As they continued through the passage, they finally came across the gemstones, but realized that there was a new monster that had made this its home. Now Fumi wondered just how they would acquire the gems, worried that the monster may destroy them all. But Raphtalia and Philo suddenly charged at it. As Raphtalia lunged with her sword, it dodged and kicked her aside before evading Philo's kick. But the lady burned it with her fire blast. Even so, it nearly clawed now Fumi's face off, but as he managed to hold it off, Philo kicked it in the face and pulled now Fumi away before it unleashed a powerful lightning. Realizing he was nearly toast, now Fumi wondered how they could slay the monster, and soon noticed Raphtalia as she cast her mirage spell, and tried sneaking up on the beast. However, it heard her footsteps, and nearly ended her in that instant. Philo told now Fumi that the beast was highly sensitive to sound. So as it jumped towards them, now Fumi utilized his new skill, and told Philo to scream into his shield. Immediately, she let out a terrible scream that repelled the monster, and the lady cast another fire blast to weaken it, allowing Raphtalia to stab it, before Philo dealt it the final blow. Realizing Raphtalia was wounded, now Fumi bandaged her wound, telling her to be careful next time. With no other monster to stop them, now Fumi finally obtained the gemstone. So the following day, Philo began converting her mana into the magic threads, but had already grown exhausted from all the work. By the next day, now Fumi finally handed the dressmaker the magic threads for Philo's clothes, and when they returned, they found Philo stunning in her new outfit. But now Fumi was only relieved that he no longer has to expand his budget for her clothes. In an instant, she transformed into the bird, and now Fumi realized that he just dodged a one-way ticket to the land of Brokies. A few days later, now Fumi and Raphtalia began heading to a neighboring village to deliver magical potions. And now Fumi wondered why a village would need so many healing potions at the same time. Before long, they came across thick vines and knew that something was definitely wrong with this place. So the village chief told them that the trees were starting to turn into monsters and were beginning to attack the people, causing them to abandon their homes. He said that it all began after Moroyasu introduced the divine seed to them, which turned out to be the seed from hell, and as they entered into a tent, he saw all the sick children. Hoping to save them, Naofumi gave one child a potion, and as he spilled it on the plants, they vanished, healing him in that instant. As they began to leave, having healed all the other children, Naofumi told Raphtalia that he was already sick of everyone, and would be leaving as soon as he was paid. However, the chief told Naofumi to eliminate all the monsters, and offered him some cash for his troubles, so he accepted it without any care in the world and set out to do his business. When they arrived inside the village, a monster tree spewed poison gas, but Raphtalia cut it down and Philo destroyed another. However, Naofumi found a larger tree, so Philo charged towards it, and using the air shield, she was able to dodge all the vines and landed a kick at the monster. Even so, another monster appeared, so Naofumi told Raphtalia to splash a potion all over it, in hopes of killing it. As she hitched a ride on Philo, they took off, evading all the vines effortlessly, before Raphtalia cut them off. However, as they began to fall, Raphtalia got caught in the vines, but quickly protected her plot. As she spilled the potion, the tree regenerated immediately, so Naofumi decided to try his enhancement skill, and began approaching the tree. Immediately, he was bound up, but his powers began ripping the vines apart. As he spilled another potion, the tree began melting apart at that instant, and crumbled to the ground. When Naofumi discovered that he has acquired a plant modification skill, he tossed 3 seeds, and watched them transform into a monster tree before withering away. After returning to the villagers, Naofumi told them that he had done his job, but said that they had to clean up the place on their own because no one hired him for a cleaning job. The next day, he was able to fill his own mana into the forbidden seed and planted it. Before his eyes, it grew into a plant, and Naofumi told the villagers that he reduced its breeding and mutation ability, making it possible to bear normal fruits. The chief began to thank him for this gift, but Naofumi told them that it was not for free. So Raphtalia suggested that they have a trade by barter. As they left the village, Raphtalia wondered what they would do with all these fruits, so Naofumi told her that he has just the perfect customer for them. That evening, when they met the gem merchant, he agreed to buy all the fruits, and offered to point them towards a nearby town for some rest. When they arrived, Naofumi thought the town looked nice, and suggested that they stay here for a few days. That night, as Raphtalia entered the room, she found Naofumi and Philo together, and wished that she could have him all to herself. So early the next morning, she thought of getting him a gift that would impress him, so he would finally see her as a grown-ass woman. Before long, she began heading out, hoping to find a bird with an ancient crystal that would impress Naofumi and turn her love life around. However, she soon realized that Philo had followed her and thought she was after the ancient crystal. But Philo told her that she was looking for a bird's egg to eat for breakfast. As she began running off, Raphtalia ran after her until she grew tired. However, as she realized that Philo was about falling off the cliff, she managed to catch her, but they fell off together. Realizing they had fallen on a beast, they started running away as it chased after them. When they got close to the edge, Philo turned into the bird, and with Raphtalia hitching a ride, she jumped over to the other side, finally escaping from the animal. After a few hours, they finally found the bird, and began sneaking towards it. When Raphtalia tried to take an egg, the bird began screaming and the beast appeared before them. As it charged towards them like a mad bull, it destroyed the nest and scattered all the eggs, until the girls finally had enough. So they returned to the town with the beast as their prize. But Raphtalia was disappointed that she wouldn't be offering Naofumi any gifts. As 2 men appeared before them, one told them that the beast was a rare offering for the town's ritual, and offered to pay them good money for it. Realizing the opportunity, they agreed to sell it, and were able to buy Naofumi a special tool for crafting metals. Raphtalia told him that it was their special way of thanking him for being a good husband to them, so Naofumi suggested that they have a threesome. A few days later, as they prepared to leave for a new village, they came across 2 travelers. After serving them breakfast, the lady told them to return to their city, and said that the village was disturbed by a terrible plague. However, Naofumi saw this as his opportunity to make some extra cash, and began heading towards it anyway. When they arrived at the village, he told an old man that he had come to sell them some healing potions. Immediately, the man realized that he was the famous traveler they had always heard about, and hurried off to tell the others. Shortly, the village doctor led him into a room filled with sick people, so Naofumi gave one sick man a potion, and everyone was surprised to see him restored. That night, Naofumi decided to charge the doctor 10 times his usual fee, and said that the villagers would return to being sick if they failed to discover the cause of their illness. The doctor told them that everyone had grown sick after a dragon on the nearby mountain was slain, and that the rot of the dragon's rotten flesh had poisoned the air, killing everyone around the site. With no one able to resist the poison, they could not incinerate the body and stop the disease. Thinking of how much he would make from this, Naofumi decided to take up the challenge, and told them that he would be charging them 50 times more than usual. Before long, they began heading towards the mountains. After spotting several monsters before them, Naofumi thought that it would be a waste of time if they tried to fight them all, so he cast a spell on Philo, making her run through them, and breezing all the way to the mountains. When they arrived before the dragon, Naofumi wondered just how they would rip it apart. But before their eyes, the dragon began restoring to life, and Naofumi realized that all their plans were screwed. As they began running off, Philo jumped before them and flew towards the dragon, knocking it with a punch. When it spewed poison gas, Naofumi managed to block it, but the smoke began to overwhelm Raphtalia. Hoping to kill it, Philo charged at it and managed to evade its attacks. However, Naofumi thought they were better off retreating, and tried calling Philo to return. But at that moment, the dragon devoured her and swallowed her up instantly. At the sight of this, Naofumi and Raphtalia thought they would never see her again. As the dragon spewed more gas, Naofumi remembered his first moments with Philo and how he watched her transform. At that instant, his anger began to grow, and his curse series was activated. Using his hate, the shield's power began to increase, but as he approached the dragon, it smashed him into the ground, and Raphtalia thought that he had walked into his own death. However, he re-emerged, raising the dragon's foot, and as his powers increased even more, Raphtalia tried to stop him, but was blown away. Naofumi released a powerful light that destroyed the ground and cleared the dust, before revealing his flaming shield. As the dragon struck with its tail, he burned it off, and remembering the pain of his betrayal, his shield burned even brighter, and he knocked the dragon, ready to burn all of it. But at that moment, he heard Raphtalia's voice, and as his mind was restored, he found her wounded, and saw her pass out on the ground. Desperate to save her, he started casting his healing magic, but she remained unconscious. Utilizing his distraction, the monster attacked him, but he was protected by his shield. However, he tried to put out the flames, realizing he could not save Raphtalia and attack the dragon at the same time. Just then, the monster began to scream and suddenly passed out. As he wondered what just happened, Raphtalia came awake, but nearly lost consciousness again. She wondered who slayed the dragon, but even Naofumi had no answer. Before their eyes, Philo rolled out of its belly, and they were surprised to see her alive, but she told them that she was never dead. She told them that while eating through its belly, she had found a purple crystal, but she revealed that it was already inside her belly. As Raphtalia began to look really sick, Naofumi suggested that they return to the village immediately, but she told him that they must burn the dragon's corpse before leaving. That evening, after returning to the village, the doctor decided to pay Naofumi for getting rid of the dragon. But he told him to use it in treating Raphtalia, because as her health grew worse, he realized that she was more important than all the gold coins in this world. The doctor told him that Raphtalia was suffering from a powerful dragon curse, and that they had no ability to cure her. So he offered him the money once more, telling him that it would come in handy. As Naofumi visited Raphtalia, he wondered just how she would recover from her illness. At the same time, Philo decided to give Naofumi another crystal she had found in the dragon, so he planted it in his shield, hoping to acquire a new skill. However, when he remembered that his rage had exposed Raphtalia to danger, he decided to apologize to her, saying that they should have never gone against the dragon. But Raphtalia told him that she was responsible, and blamed herself for being too weak and useless to fight. But Philo said that her attack had complicated their plans. Trying to cheer everyone up, Naofumi told them that they were stronger now than ever, and said that they would overcome their battles together. When he tried to leave, Raphtalia asked him to spend the night in her bed, saying that she wants to feel his long sword deep inside her sheath. But Naofumi was in no mood for this, and told her to spend her night reading the Bible. A few days later, Naofumi and his harem began slaying monsters. When he started feeling guilty for allowing Raphtalia to join in the battle, she told him that she enjoys flexing her muscles and slaying all the monsters like cutting grass. That afternoon, as they began traveling through the forest, Naofumi told Raphtalia that they must return to the city immediately, so that they would find a cure for her illness. At that moment, they discovered a young girl on the other side of the forest. But when the birds noticed their presence, they took off immediately. The girl noticed Naofumi and his company, and basically overlooked him like he was totally invisible, but told Philo that she has always wished to meet her clan and was happy that she could talk. Raphtalia wondered if the girl was from the village, but now Fumi told her that she was probably the daughter of some noble lord. After the girl introduced herself as Melty, now Fumi told Philo that he would be heading to town with Raphtalia, and offered her a time out. Happy to get a break, Philo transformed back into a human, and the girl was happy that she had made a new friend. That evening in the village, now Fumi began to heal the people with his healing potion. But later that night, as he bandaged Raphtalia's wound, Philo told them that Melty was a lost little girl who could not find her way back to the city after getting separated from her security. At that moment, the girl arrived, asking them to escort her to the city as she wished to reunite with her family. With now Fumi unwilling to agree, Melty told him that she must visit the capital immediately for an urgent duty, and promised to reward him with more gold than he can hold. Now Fumi thought he may as well become a millionaire from all the reward, but was worried that he might get into trouble for hanging around with a lord's daughter. Philo told him that they can't abandon her, and Raphtalia said that helping her was the right thing to do, so now Fumi finally agreed. The next day, now Fumi and the girls finally rode out of the village, but as they began a new journey, Raphtalia endured all of her pain. After successfully sneaking into the city, now Fumi told Philo to escort Melty to her home and to return with all the cash she promised. Afterwards, they arrived at the church, hoping to find a cure for Raphtalia's illness. Now Fumi noticed that there was no symbol of his shield on the top of the church, and realized that everyone in the church probably hates him. After arriving inside, the Pope welcomed him, saying that he had witnessed his duel with Motoyasu at the castle and considers him a great fighter. But now Fumi could give two shits about his compliments, and demanded for their most powerful holy water that would heal any curse. One priest told him that nothing good comes for free, and that he must pay a gold coin for it. However, when he used his appraisal skill on the holy water, he realized that it was the cheapest one in their store and told them to go drink it. So the Pope commanded for the real bottle and apologized for the mix-up. After using his appraisal on a new bottle, he discovered that this was the real one and began to leave. When they arrived outside the church, they noticed that a knight was running towards them, screaming for his attention. Unwilling to associate himself with anyone in the city, now Fumi and Raphtalia started running off, hoping to lose the man, and they hid in an alley. Looking to keep Raphtalia safe, now Fumi suggested that they split up, and decided to draw the knight towards a different direction. After growing exhausted from all the runs, now Fumi tried resting, but Motoyasu came flying with his spear, narrowly missing him. Now Fumi wondered if he had finally lost his mind, but Motoyasu told him that he had come to free another slave girl. As now Fumi blocked his spear, he told him to go get a life, saying that Raphtalia was never getting in his bed. But Motoyasu told him that he had come to free someone else. With now Fumi confused, Motoyasu told him that he had spotted an angel in his group, and had come to rescue her immediately. After realizing that the girl was Philo, Motoyasu began saying that he had never seen a prettier angel before, and has been considering having his own harem with her as his second wife. Now Fumi noticed his groin protector, and wondered just how he intends to satisfy his harem with his damaged plot development device. Wounded by the memory, Motoyasu decided to retaliate Philo's attack, and launched his spear, but he parried it, destroying a stall instantly. A few people began screaming at him to grow a brain cell, but when others thought his attacks were perfect, they began a fight of their own. As Motoyasu began charging with his spear, the knight stood in his way, forcing him to stop, but Mine arrived, and commanded her soldiers to surround them immediately. Revealing a royal order, she commanded that Motoyasu and now Fumi begin a new duel. However, Melty appeared just in time, and said that she would not allow a duel inside her city. At that moment, now Fumi discovered that she was Mine's sister. Shortly, Raphtalia and Philo arrived, wondering why Motoyasu had completely lost his mind. Without hesitating, he tried winning Philo over with his best subreddit pickup lines, promising to build her a castle and treat her like a princess, but Philo told him that pulling a carriage was all she's ever dreamed of. Even so, Motoyasu thought she had also been brainwashed by now Fumi, and threatened to end him like he plans to do to the fat disgusting bird that nearly damaged his plot. Hearing his words, Philo grew angry, and transformed into the bird, ready to destroy his plot device for good this time. With Motoyasu shocked at the realization that she was actually the bird, she kicked his plot region, certainly crushing it this time. Shortly, Melty appeared before them and told Naofumi that she wishes to speak with him in private, but he had already grown sick of seeing their disgusting faces. That evening, when they arrived at the smith's shop, Naofumi demanded to know who she really was. She told him that she was the second princess of the kingdom and was first in line to the throne, ahead of her own moronic sister, Mine. Just then, a knight told Melty that the king was waiting to see her, so she decided to leave. But Philo was sad to have lost her only young friend. As Melty was leaving, she remembered that her mother, the queen, had sent her to the capital so she could defend Naofuma's honor, since the king had merely treated him like an outcast. However, she was sad that she could not deliver her message to him. Inside the smith shop, Philo began asking Naofumi why he had refused to speak with Melty, but he told her that it was a decision for grown-ups alone, and that she must never hang out with her anymore. With the girl drawn to tears, she hurried out of the shop. However, she soon returned and told him that a few men had come to see him. Naofumi realized that it was the earlier night and that he was accompanied by a bunch of ugly losers. He demanded to know why he was stalking him, so the lead knight told him that they wished to join his team and to fight by his side when the waves returned. Naofumi told them to leave him the hell alone and said that they could just fight on their own when the waves arrive. However, another knight told him that they were from the nearby village he had saved during the last waves, and that his desire to save their family had inspired them all to become brave. Unmoved by their speech, Naofumi told them that he would only accept them into his team if they bought his old disgusting item for 50 times the usual price, saying that it was their only shot at earning his trust. For the simps and newbies that they were, the leader told him that they would find the money somehow, even if they had to sell their kidneys too. That evening, with the knights gone, Naofumi told the smith that he could see a strange symbol on Raphtalia and Philo's stats, and wondered what it meant, so the smith told him that it meant they were qualified to have a class upgrade. He said that the upgrade allows them to increase their level cap, but that it could only be done by the church as they had the power of the hourglass. So the following day, Naofumi remembered that there was an hourglass inside the church that could make the upgrade, and told Raphtalia to make up her mind on what she wants. He told her that his opinion was irrelevant since he would be returning to his own world once the waves were completely over. But Raphtalia was shocked by the news, afraid that she would never see him again. When they arrived inside the church, they learned that the upgrade was expensive enough to buy them a yacht, and Naofumi wondered just how many girls he would have in his harem if he had one. Deciding to man up, he told Raphtalia to step up for her own upgrade and paid the money as requested, but a lady appeared and told him that they were forbidden from upgrading anyone from his group. Apparently, the outrageous sum was merely to scare him away, but with Naofumi proving that he was truly a top G, they realized that they had no more lies to tell, and the lady showed him a direct order from the king. Disappointed that the f***ing king just won't leave him alone, Naofumi took back his money immediately. After a few hours, they arrived at the slaver's tent. When the merchant wondered why they had come, Naofumi asked him if he could upgrade their class. The man told him that he has no such ability, but said that they could get it done in another country, since apparently, a few other countries also have their own hourglass. As he recommended a faraway country, he told them that it would take a few weeks to arrive by boat. However, with the waves fast approaching, Naofumi thought it would take too long to arrive there, so the man suggested that they equip themselves in the meantime. After doing so, Naofumi wondered how they could put Philo's new talons to the test, so the merchant directed them to the city's sewers. As they made their way further down the sewers, they came across a monster crocodile, and Naofumi managed to block its attack. Immediately, Raphtalia slashed its tail, but when it tried to eat her, Philo kicked it away, allowing her to stab it before Philo ripped it apart. With the monster dead, they realized that their new weapons were worth every penny. That night in their room, Naofumi began rolling up a bandage over Raphtalia's wound. With 10 days left before the arrival of the waves, he hoped that she would be completely healed before its arrival. Recalling his earlier words, she decided to ask if she could follow him to his own world after the waves had all ended, afraid that she would become useless all over again once he was gone. However, what she did not know was that even he was a total loser in his own world, and that no one gave two f***s about him because for what it's worth, he was only relevant in this world.
Damn!
As she tried telling him that she was already in love with him, Philo woke up, wondering why she was not invited for a threesome. Raphtalia tried telling her that they were only having a heart-to-heart, but she would not believe it, and demanded that they restart all over again, but Naofumi screamed at them that he was tired already. After a few days, they arrived in a devastated city, and now Fumi wondered if everyone was already dead. After arriving deep inside the city, they found only a few surviving people, and one told them that they were refugees of a war. Another man told now Fumi that a group of adventurers had formed a resistant group that led the war to take down their corrupt lord. However, their lives had only grown worse afterwards, as there was no ruler to watch over the city. Hearing his words, now Fumi realized that the leader of the adventurers must have been Itsuki. After they returned to their city, they decided to grab lunch inside a restaurant, but they soon noticed Itsuki and Ren sitting on the far side. A member of Itsuki's team told him that they received a request from the Adventurers Guild to eliminate a town lord that had placed heavy taxes on his people, so he could form an army of his own. When Itsuki agreed to carry out the request, now Fumi accidentally spat his drink at Philo, taking Itsuki for a useless moron. Realizing he was probably laughing at them, Itsuki and Ren arrived at his table, but now Fumi told him that he looks worse than a clown. Itsuki said that a stranger has been impersonating them and stealing their jobs, and for some reason, he thought that now Fumi was the impersonator. Now Fumi was having none of their bullshit, and began asking Itsuki why he abandoned the devastated city after getting rid of their lord. While feeding them, he had asked the survivors why their city had turned worse than before, so a man had told him that the resistant army that eliminated their corrupt lord had turned even worse, and had doubled the taxes without caring for the people. Now Fumi told Itsuki that his attempt to create equality in their city had only made everything worse, and told Ren that the dragon he slayed had caused an epidemic that killed several villagers because he failed to incinerate it. He told them that he helped them to do their job, and said that their recklessness had made a lot of lives to be lost. Having no further desire to waste his spit, he began to leave, and even when Itsuki told him that he doesn't believe anything he said, he merely ignored him. That evening, as they were about leaving the smith's shop, the young warriors appeared before them, and the leader told now Fumi that they managed to save up all the money he asked for. So he gave him the item as agreed, but told them to buy better weapons with the money they earned. As he accepted them into his team, the system revealed all their stats, but he threatened to kick them out if they snitched on him. With the next waves only 24 hours away, he suggested that they begin plotting a strategy for the battle. By the following day, they were all ready for the war, and now Fumi had stuck up enough medicine to be used for the wounded. As he wore Raphtalia a custom-made bracelet, he told her that it was imbued with a spell that would boost her mana generation, so she told him she likes it. When Philo grew jealous and demanded for her own gift, now Fumi wore her a special hairpin, telling her that it would increase her agility. As she grew excited, she transformed into the bird, and now Fumi thought it looked perfect on her. At that moment, the time began counting down, and they vanished instantly. As they arrived in a new village, they realized that the waves had already invaded the place, but 2 knights slayed a monster before it could end a villager. As they began to think the battle was over, a monster lizard appeared and tried to eat them, but was knocked aside, and Raphtalia sliced it before Philo bashed it with kicks, killing it in that instant. Just then, they noticed an older lady kicking and bashing the monsters. When she was done, she thanked now Fumi for saving her life, and he remembered that he had revived her with his healing potion. As she kicked another monster, she told them that she was an adventurer and said that killing them was basically a cakewalk. When now Fumi wondered how much longer they would have to keep fighting, the lead knight suggested that he finds a way to destroy the waves before the entire village was destroyed. As now Fumi and the girls began running towards the portals, they spotted a ghost ship. At the same time, Itsuki and the girl eliminated the surrounding monsters. When now Fumi demanded to know where the others were fighting, Itsuki told him that they were on the ghost ship, so Philo immediately flew onto the ship, and flew even higher so they would have a better view of everyone. Before their eyes, Ren sliced the skull captain, but it returned to life and started fighting again. As Ren and Motoyasu backed into each other, Ren suggested they eliminate the skull captain first. Before they knew it, now Fumi appeared before them, but Motoyasu was not impressed, and told him to scram. Ignoring his useless face, now Fumi told them that the only way to stop the monsters from reappearing was by ending the waves. By instinct, he blocked the captain and pushed it off, saying that they were supposed to fight together and not separately. Just then, the Kraken attacked him, but he managed to shield himself, telling them to quit thinking about shit. But as he let out those words, Ren and Motoyasu started bickering again. As now Fumi checked the captain's stats, he wondered how he could lure out the Soul Eater without killing the zombie. At that moment, he noticed the zombie's shadow, and told Raphtalia to cast her light magic on it. So Raphtalia began casting the spell, and as a bright light revealed the shadows, now Fumi told her to kill it, so she stabbed it without hesitating. Immediately, a spirit flame rose towards the sky, and Ren swiftly stabbed another shadow as more spirit flames rose high over the ship, and they soon realized that they were surrounded by the Soul Eaters. Before their eyes, the spirits rose towards the sky and united as a dimensional Soul Eater. At the sight of this, everyone wondered if they could actually kill it. Immediately, Ren, Itsuki, and Madoyasu unleashed a powerful combo at the beast, but it was unscathed. Realizing they were hopeless, now Fumi told Philo to cast her wind magic, so she managed to knock it with a tornado. Even so, the Soul Eater remained unfazed and began to prepare an attack of its own. Afraid its attack would be lethal, Ren and Madoyasu began charging towards it, but now Fumi thought it was a shit idea and protected Raphtalia and Philo from the mighty blast that rocked the ship. As it prepared an even greater blast that was sure to annihilate them all, Philo activated a new power and started bashing it from side to side. And drawing its attention elsewhere, she caused it to lose its aim entirely. At once, Raphtalia tried slaying it, and Philo began smashing it, narrowly escaping its jaws each time. Seeing as the monster's life was decreasing, now Fumi thought they may have a chance at defeating it, but was afraid that the village would be destroyed before it was even over. Desperate to eliminate it, now Fumi told Raphtalia that he would unleash his rage shield, in hopes of taking it down at once. So she reminded him that she was his sword, and said that she was willing to follow him to the very ends of the earth. At that moment, he summoned his rage shield, and the energy from the light began to consume him. Inside his consciousness, he realized that the dragon's soul was alive in his shield, and as a grow-up skill was activated, his shield and armor upgraded as he began to burn with the dragon's rage. When the other heroes noticed his new power, they wondered if he met up with the devil or some dark spirit. Before they knew it, Philo was taken over by a powerful rage, and she took down the monster with a kick, allowing now Fumi to burn it, determined to turn it to ash. At the sight of this, Mine began telling everyone that now Fumi was a wild beast who wasn't even fitting to be a hero, but Raphtalia called her a useless shitface and wondered why the other heroes were not offering him any support, since he was fighting for their entire world. Just then, the pirate and Kraken appeared behind now Fumi, but Ren slayed the pirate with his crimson sword, and Itsuki launched his thunder shot at the Kraken. Realizing their only hope at defeating the monster was by working together, Madoyasu finally agreed to help out, and now Fumi jumped away from the monster. Looking to utilize the opening, they began striking the eater at the same time, and Madoyasu stabbed it with his spear. Even so, it still rose up and was practically unkillable at this point. Meanwhile, in now Fuma's consciousness, he continued fighting his rage, but as Raphtalia appeared beside him and told him that she believes in him, the rage vanished at that instant. He remembered that he had promised to protect her and Philo always, and thought that the rage shield was causing them more harm than good. Right then, he unlocked a new skill and trapped the beast inside a shield prison. When it tried breaking out of the prison, he caused iron rods to impale it and began casting a spell. At that moment, the Iron Maiden appeared in the sky and accepted the shield prison, shutting its doors on it. As it vanished, the monster began descending into the abyss, finally dead. With the monster gone, now Fumi fell from exhaustion, and Philo followed suit, wondering what happened. As the other heroes grew jealous of his victory, Madoyasu vowed to have the upper hand next time, but Philo appeared before him, calling him a sore loser. As now Fumi noticed a mysterious presence around them, another Soul Eater appeared before them, and Ren thought that this was not in the video game. But as it roared for their meat, a flurry of light arrows rained down on it, killing it in that instant. Just then, a lady descended before them, dispelling all traces of the monster, and said that now Fumi alone was deserving of the title. She introduced herself as Glass and said that she was their enemy. Using his appraisal, now Fumi discovered that she was a high-ranking human and thought they were probably hopeless of defeating her in a fight. Immediately, they surrounded her and unleashed another powerful combo that should have destroyed every bit of her body. But not a scratch was made on her, and she wondered if that was all they've got. To reveal a power of her own, she cast a reverse spell and blew them away with a mighty wind, leaving now Fumi as the last man standing. With the others in shock from her powers, now Fumi decided to drink a soul-soothing potion that would recover his SP. Immediately, he trapped her inside a shield prison, but she destroyed it in an instant, and swiftly blocked Raphtalia's attack before blowing Philo aside. As she cast a wind, now Fumi managed to protect Raphtalia, and serpents flew out to restrain her. At now Fuma's command, Philo attacked her with relentless assault, but she merely cast her away. Just then, Raphtalia tried to end her, but she blocked and destroyed her sword instantly. As she prepared for a new attack, now Fumi commanded Raphtalia and Philo to his side, and summoned a shield prison to protect them, managing to survive the onslaught of her attacks. but passed out after it was over. So with Raphtalia in support, now Fumi decided to summon the dark power, possessing Philo with the same rage. Immediately, she began charging at the enemy, aiming with a kick, but she caught her and threw her aside like a useless trash before blowing her away like a stuffed animal. Now Fumi tried running closer, but she cast a wind to stop him before igniting in flames. In an instant, she put out the fire, telling him that his flame was too cold for her. To show more of her powers, she launched a shell cracker that penetrated his shield and destroyed his armor. Even so, he continued to stand, and she thought that he was truly deserving of being called the Shield Hero, and asked him to unleash his full power. Hoping to live up to the challenge, now Fumi bound her in a shield prison and summoned the Iron Maiden, trapping her inside and shutting up the cell for good. However, she destroyed it in an instant and descended back on the ship. Just then, the ship rocked and she realized that the wave was about to vanish. As she prepared to launch one final attack, Raphtalia cast a powerful light to blind her vision, allowing them to utilize the distraction and escape on Philo. However, just as they were hurrying farther away from the ship, light arrows began raining on them, as now Fumi cast an air shield to block the rest of them. From the ship, the lady launched a glowing light sword, but now Fumi managed to shield it and parried it towards the mountains. Realizing she could not defeat them, the lady promised to annihilate them all next time. At that moment, she ascended into the portal and vanished instantly. Before long, the waves disappeared, and the ghost ship crashed on the mountain. But Raphtalia wondered if the village managed to survive. Later that day, after returning to the village, now Fumi remembered that a countdown had appeared on the system before the end of the waves, and began to wonder why the waves even exist in the first place, knowing for sure that they must grow stronger before the next one to save them from an instant isekai. With the Soul Eater skill now included in his shield, now Fumi wondered how he could upgrade Raphtalia and Philo to a higher class. At that moment, two knights appeared before him, telling him that the king was commanding to see him at the castle. Inside the castle, the king began telling him that he had seen the entire fight in his crystal ball, and thought he deserves a little recognition. The king told him that he was too powerful for his own good, and demanded to know how he became so strong. Sick of his bullshit, now Fumi told him to kneel before him and ask like a good servant. But the king grew angry and ordered his knights to surround him, so now Fumi told them that he would destroy them like worthless garbage since their faces were worse than trash anyway. As he began to leave, the king threatened to eliminate Raphtalia and Philo, saying that he would make them pay for his sins. But now Fumi became very angry and threatened to destroy him if he ever did so, and finally left. As he started leaving the castle, he came across a lady who told him that he was becoming a reckoning force, and warned him to be cautious of new enemies. That evening, after now Fumi arrived at the smith's shop, the smith wondered how they intend to upgrade their class. Revealing a map, he showed them a new city, saying that it was the best place to go for their upgrade. Just as they began riding off, now Fumi discovered a letter from the smith, telling him that he had loaded their wagon with enough food to last them for weeks, and added a shield accessory for his upgrade, along with a sword for Raphtalia. On top of that, he added an invisible sword that would be useful in fighting unseen enemies, and special overpowered gloves that could push anything, even the carriage. While resting for the day, they discovered Melty approaching them, and now Fumi wondered how the hell she found them. Philo tried telling him that Melty was a good person, unlike the rest of the royal family. But now Fumi couldn't possibly care less. Just then, Melty told him to return to the castle immediately to see the king. But now Fumi refused instantly. Looking to try a different approach, she told him to apologize to the king and make peace before he loses the rest of his earnings. But now Fumi told her that he would rather vomit his gut. As now Fumi looked at her security, he thought they looked exactly the same way they appeared on the day he was set up in the castle. At that moment, a soldier began charging to slay her, but he managed to protect her and shoved him away. Immediately, the soldier began accusing him of abducting the princess and commanded the other soldiers to attack him. So Raphtalia began striking, kicking, and smacking the soldiers, and Philo transformed into a bird and sat on some of them, as now Fumi continued blocking their attacks. Before long, they kicked all the soldiers to the ground, but having seen enough, the lead soldier commanded the rest of them to retreat. By the following day, they began to reveal altered footage all across the cities, telling everyone that now Fumi had abducted the princess and declared them fugitives, giving them no other choice but to hide in the mountains. That night, looking at the rosary, he remembered that he had found it on one of the soldiers, and Raphtalia had told him that it belongs to the church in the capital, making him realize that the church was responsible for this setup. Angered by this realization, now Fumi wondered just how many enemies they had to deal with at the same time. However, Melty told him that the king was innocent, but suspected that her sister was responsible instead. Even so, now Fumi had no desire to believe her delusions, and said that there was no saint in the castle. Melty tried asking him to visit the king for the final time, convinced that they would finally make peace. But now Fumi walked away, realizing she was only a naive kid. After a few hours, he returned to the camp and said that they must leave for a new country, but wondered where Melty would go. She told him that she would return to the capital to see the king. But now Fumi told her that it was the worst possible idea she could ever have, as she would be killed instantly. He told her that she could only be safe by his side, and promised to protect her in the meantime. So the next day, they abandoned their wagon and began traveling over the mountains. That evening, as they decided to rest, Raphtalia asked now Fumi why he had chosen a different country than earlier agreed upon. So he told her that it was heavily protected and thought it would be a much safer place for them to hide. That night, now Fumi decided to ask Melty why he's never heard of her mother. Melty told him that she was the queen of another country, and was a superior ruler over the king who married into her royal family. Realizing that even the king was a useless fake-ass opportunist, now Fumi began laughing at him. Just then, he sensed a presence over the mountains, so they started walking again. After arriving at a dead end, they realized that several soldiers were already waiting on top of the mountain. So now Fumi suggested that they take a different path. But as they returned, a rock crumbled, and Melty nearly fell off, but now Fumi caught her instantly. Unluckily, the soldiers discovered their whereabouts, so they began running towards the edge of the mountain. As they arrived at the cliff, now Fumi discovered that it was a dead end. Just then, Itsuki appeared before them, and told now Fumi to release Melty, but he told her that he never abducted her in the first place. When Moroyasu said that it was a big lie, Melty began telling them that she had asked now Fumi to protect her after realizing there was a plot to kill her, and asked that they unite as a team. But Mine said that she had been brainwashed by now Fumi's shield, and that the church in the capital had proof that the shield hero was the devil incarnate. This all made sense to Moroyasu, and he thought this was why he could neither have Philo or Raphtalia. Raphtalia tried saying that now Fumi was innocent, but Ren told him to release Melty as proof that she wasn't brainwashed. Afraid for herself, Melty told him that she would be killed for sure if she returns, but Mine began persuading her to follow them. Coming to a decision, now Fumi told them that he would rather protect the girl, as he could not trust Mine to keep her safe, since she was desiring to be first in line to the throne and would not hesitate to kill the poor girl. At his command, Philo transformed into the bird and began running away. Using his air shield, she climbed on the mountain and started flying off to the other side, but Moroyasu flung a spelled shackle at her foot, causing her to transform and spill everyone towards the ground. Unluckily, Philo fell on the wrong side, and Mine thought they have some leverage. Raising her hand, she grew a light ball and launched it high above the mountains, casting light all around them. With Philo far off and the heroes arriving, now Fumi realized they had nowhere to run. As Moroyasu held onto Philo like a worthless, disgusting perv, he said that he asked an alchemist to make the shackle specifically for her so she would remain an angel forever. Melty began casting a spell, and narrowly missed him with her blast, telling him that she would fry his face in her next attempt. But Mine launched a flaming ball that now Fumi managed to block. At the sight of this, Itsuki wondered why she was trying to eliminate her own sister, but Mine said that Melty has a death wish, and she intends to grant it. So she continued launching more fireballs, and immediately drank a potion to increase her powers, and fired flaming bullets relentlessly. Raphtalia told now Fumi that she has a plan to rescue Philo, so now Fumi offered to make a distraction, and summoned his rage shield at that instant. As now Fumi began to burn with the fiery power, Mine commanded her soldiers to attack at once, so they launched arrows at him, but he blocked with his shield. As Mine prepared a mighty flaming ball to eliminate them, Raphtalia appeared from behind and stabbed her with the invisible sword, causing it to vanish, and Philo knocked the disgusting perv with a mighty punch. At the commander's order, the soldiers started charging towards now Fumi, but his flames exploded with a mighty force, destroying the mountain around them. After the smoke cleared, now Fumi told Ren to open his useless eyes to understand the setup, and tossed the rosary at his feet before leaving. Later that night, after now Fumi unlocked Philo's shackle, they noticed a stranger beside them, and realized that she had appeared at the village during now Fumi's animal race with Moroyasu. Before Raphtalia could draw her sword, Melty told her that the stranger works for the queen. The stranger told now Fumi that she was happy to see him again, and he remembered that she was the lady he came across in the castle. She told him that he must see the queen immediately before the situation grew worse, and said that only the queen could restore peace to the country. So now Fumi decided to look at a map, wondering how far away the queen's city was. Before long, Raphtalia sensed a terrible smell, and they wondered where it was from, but did not realize that Mine was starting to burn the entire forest in a desperate attempt to smoke them out. At her command, her soldiers fired flaming arrows farther into the forest, hoping to make now Fumi take the blame for it. At the same time in the forest, now Fumi and the girls watched the fire from a distance, and they finally realized that the ugly psycho must be responsible for it. So now Fumi suggested that they leave before the fires spread to them. By morning, now Fumi decided to buy food at a nearby village, hoping to discover some new piece of information. So the merchant told him that it was impossible to leave the country as all the exits had been blocked. After joining the others, he told them that their safest option was to see the queen, as she was the only person that could protect them. A few days later, they arrived at a new region belonging to the demi-humans, and Melty told them that her friend was the lord of this region, and thought he could help them sneak out of the country since they were practically fugitive at this point. When now Fumi noticed that Raphtalia was sad, he wondered what may have happened to her, so she told them that her village was nearby, and that shortly after the waves, they were attacked by the king's soldiers and taken away as slaves. Just then, a man appeared before them. Now Fumi and Raphtalia thought he was an enemy, and were almost ready to eliminate him, but Melty told them that he was her friend. The man introduced himself as Reichnaut, and told them that he was the lord of this region, but now Fumi thought he was too ugly to be trusted. Reichnaut told them that the area wasn't safe, and invited them over to his mansion for better security. Inside his mansion, he told them that Mine had offered a huge reward for their execution, and told them to rest for as long as they want. However, as they started having dinner, now Fumi told them that they must leave by morning before they were discovered. With several soldiers looking for them, he knew it was only a matter of time before their whereabouts was exposed. When they arrived inside the room, now Fumi watched the windows, afraid they would be surrounded while resting. So Raphtalia promised to keep watch in the meantime and asked him to get some rest, but Melty was angry that he had been ignoring her. Hoping to cheer her up, Philo suggested that they take a walk around the mansion. Meanwhile at the capital, the king discovered that Melty was yet to be found and commanded his army to turn the entire country upside down and search for her. As they left, Mine told the king that she would rescue her sister and return her home safely, but he had no idea that she was the devil incarnate. At Reichnaut's mansion, with everyone else asleep, Melty decided to ask now Fumi if running far away was her best choice, as she had several duties to attend to and was afraid of becoming the world's most useless princess. However, now Fumi told her that her survival was more important, as nothing else would matter if she was dead. As he took over night duty, he noticed that Raphtalia was having a nightmare and tried soothing her. He remembered that she used to have nightmares when she was younger and wondered if she was having the same nightmare. The following morning, they realized that Reichnaut had been arrested by the king's army. Immediately, a maid told them that they must run away at once, as Reichnaut was discovered to have housed them. So they began running down the hall, with the soldiers looking for them. As two soldiers burst inside the kitchens, they demanded to know where now Fumi was hiding, but the maid pretended to know nothing. At that moment, Melty appeared and introduced herself as the princess, commanding them to leave immediately. However, a man appeared before her, and the sight of his horrible face caused Raphtalia to grow angry, and she tried drawing her sword, but now Fumi stopped her. The lord told Melty that he came here in hopes of finding her, but she thought his face was worse than his lies, and told him to withdraw from the mansion at once. He asked where the shield hero was hiding, but Melty told him that he had escaped already, and commanded him to escort her back to the capital, so he led her away. At the same time, now Fumi stopped Raphtalia from bursting outside in full assault mode, telling her that it would only put Melty in danger, so she returned her sword. With the soldiers gone, now Fumi and Raphtalia began screaming for Philo, afraid that she may have been taken away. However, when now Fumi screamed a powerful command, she cried from the pain of her burning crest, punishing her for disobeying her master. Now Fumi wondered why she was hiding in the attic, so she told him that Melty had asked her to hide herself and she had spent all day waiting to be found. After she discovered that Melty had been taken away, she tried hurrying to her rescue, but Raphtalia stopped her, afraid they would be putting her in more danger. Philo wondered if they would abandon her, but now Fumi told them that he already promised to protect her and intends to keep to his promise. That night, as they prepared for their rescue mission, Raphtalia remembered that she was taken away as a slave a few years ago and grew afraid at the memory. When now Fumi realized this, he wondered if she would stay behind while they rescue Melty, but she told him that she intends to confront her past. Just then, they discovered that the demi-humans were trying to invade the Lord's mansion, desperate to free Reichnot. Now Fumi thought this was the perfect distraction, and suggested sneaking into the mansion, so Philo began rushing up the mountain. Meanwhile in the mansion, the Lord demanded to know where now Fumi was hiding, but Melty told him that she had no idea. The Lord thought she was making it up, and decided to ask Reichnot for now Fumi's whereabouts, but he told him to kiss his white ass and got punched in the gut. The Lord told Melty that it was his sacred duty to punish her for taking sides with now Fumi, as he was considered to be the devil himself, and she realized that her plans had gone south. Outside the mansion, the soldiers began charging towards Philo, but Raphtalia jumped off, striking down the men before her and running after now Fumi before Philo blew the others away. As she arrived before the mansion, Raphtalia remembered the time she was locked up in a cell and shivered at the memory, before continuing towards the Lord's chamber. After arriving at an underground, now Fumi noticed that Raphtalia was greatly disturbed by her memories of this place, and promised to help her find some closure after Melty had been rescued. As the soldiers appeared before them, Raphtalia charged to slay them, and now Fumi shielded a sword, allowing his snake to bite the soldier. With the knight close to getting isekai'd, now Fumi told him that he would only give him the antidote if he reveals the Lord's chamber. At the same time in the chamber, the shit-faced Lord was trying to back Melty into the corner, but a knight told him that the shield hero had invaded the mansion. Just then, Philo burst through the wall, knocking him away, and Raphtalia appeared for support. Thinking she was safe already, Melty tried hurrying to them, but the Lord caught her and threatened to slice her head off. However, now Fumi appeared at that moment, separating them with a shield, so Philo kicked him away. And now Fumi gave the knight his antidote. Seeing everyone, Melty tried playing tough kid and asked why they came to save her. So now Fumi told her that he could never abandon her since he already promised to keep her safe. Realizing they definitely saved her from the ugly ass perv, she decided to thank them for the rescue. As the Lord drew his whip, threatening to execute them all, Raphtalia began approaching him with all defiance. Desperate to keep her away, he struck her with the whip, but she was unfazed and received every single lash without even a grunt before slashing off his whip as he fell like a useless coward. As she pointed her sword at his face, he begged her to spare his life, but she told him that he deserves worse than death for executing all her friends. Hearing her words, he realized that she was one of his prisoners. As she grew angry at the sight of his horrible face, she tried to end him, but he started begging for her forgiveness. When she looked ready to cut him like a piece of meat, now Fumi told her that killing him would not return her dead friends to life, and said that she was better off letting go of the past, so she lowered her sword. However, the Lord thought he could utilize her weakness and drew his own sword. Realizing he could not overpower her, he ruffled her wound and knocked off her sword, narrowly missing her. But she grabbed her invisible sword and impaled his heart. Even so, he kicked her to the floor, saying that her kind deserved to be killed. Just then, he slipped on his whip and broke outside the window, falling to his doom. At that moment, they thought he had entered Nirvana, and Raphtalia blamed herself for his death. But now Fumi told her that he was already booked for his own isekai anime. When Reichnot appeared, happy to see everyone alive, Melty decided to heal his wound, and he suggested that they run away immediately. But now Fumi told him that they have an unfinished business. Before long, they returned to the underground chamber, and Raphtalia told them that she was imprisoned in the cells along with her friends, and only managed to survive. Now Fumi thought the memories would be overwhelming, and suggested that they leave immediately, but she refused and started heading inside. She remembered that after the waves destroyed her village, she had riled for support to build back their homes, but the king's soldiers had ambushed them and taken her away as a prisoner, bringing them into this underground cells. As they walked through the chamber, they arrived at her former cell, and Raphtalia remembered that the ugly Lord had enjoyed beating her up like a worthless trash. But one day, she was forced to leave her friend Rifana after getting sold off to a slave merchant. The memories made her sad, and she knelt before the cell. At that moment, they realized that one slave was still trapped inside a cell, so now Fumi unlocked it to free the child. However, they soon discovered that another kid was locked up in another cell, so after freeing her, Melty began to heal her with magic. Before long, one more slave was discovered. After arriving inside his cell, Raphtalia realized that he was her old friend Keel. Happy to see him alive, she immediately freed him. But he had no more memories of her, so she introduced herself and reminded him that she saved him once from drowning. At this realization, he was happy to see her alive, having feared that she was already dead, and she held him close to her. She told him that she was now a fighter for the shield hero, and that they came together to rescue him. Now Fumi asked to see his wound and began to heal his injury, making him realize that he was truly the shield hero. Up until this moment, the shield hero had merely been a fairy tale to him, so he was excited to see him before his eyes. However, when he told Raphtalia that Rafana would have loved to see him, she realized that Rafana may be dead already, and hurried off to her cell. When she arrived, she began to cry at the sight of her skeleton, sad that she could not see her one final time. To make her feel better, now Fumi suggested that they offer her a befitting burial, but Raphtalia told him that she feels guilty for her death as she was too weak to protect her friends. Teal began telling her that she was special, and that he was only alive because she returned to rescue him. Even so, Raphtalia blamed herself for everyone's death, saying that her entire life was an embarrassment, and that she did not deserve to be now Fumi's sword and to stand by his side. Now Fumi thought this was bullshit, and began telling her that he would have abandoned this world if she had not stayed by his side instead, as her presence had been the light to his darkness. Teal told her that she was his hero for becoming a badass fighter, and now Fumi told her that the kids were only free because she led them into this underground. To gain some closure, Raphtalia thanked Rafana's soul for protecting her, and promised to restore their village in her honor. After arriving outside the mansion, they realized that the demi-humans were still fighting to make their way inside, so now Fumi told Reich not to reveal himself to them. But at that moment, they realized that the disgusting lord was still alive. Before their eyes, he began casting a spell to release a powerful monster that was sealed away by the previous heroes. Immediately, the ground began to open, and the Lord commanded the monster to attack everyone in sight. As the dinosaur emerged, the Lord thought this was his lucky day, but was trampled instantly, and the roar from the monster unleashed a mighty wind. When the monster began to destroy the mansion, now Fumi realized that they couldn't possibly fight it, and suggested that they run away, so they took off. As they hid behind a new building, hoping they would not be found, the dinosaur appeared before them, and they wondered how it found them. Ready to take it on, Philo began charging towards it and struck it with a kick, so now Fumi prepared his shield for support. As Philo flew over the monster, it followed after her, and Melty told now Fumi that the beast was drawn to the dragon remnant inside her belly. At the same time, Philo bumped into the dinosaur, and now Fumi realized they could actually lure the monster out of the city. When he was worried about the freed slaves, Reichnot promised to protect them and to take them back to his region. With Raphtalia unwilling to abandon her friend, Keel told her that he was very proud of her, and promised to be safe until she returns. So she wore him her bracelet as a parting gift, saying that they would meet again someday. In hopes of drawing the monster away from the city, Philo began hurrying away, and the dinosaur chased after them. As she hurried down the mountain, she ran through the forest before flying through the city. With the monster continuing the chase, Melty realized that Philo was truly its magnet, and they finally left the city. Philo wondered where they were headed, so now Fumi told her to run as far away as possible. As they began running out of the forest, the monster continued chasing them, destroying the trees before it. Finally out of the forest, now Fumi told them to prepare for battle. Just then, the dinosaur charged out of the forest, and now Fumi cast an air shield before them, but it bumped into the shield and successfully destroyed it. Immediately, Philo bumped into it, and as she charged once more, she kicked it from the bottom, and Melty launched a blast, but it was unscathed. Hoping to land a killer blow, Raphtalia rushed forward and slashed it, but could not even make a cut. Desperate to give it her best shot, Philo asked for now Fumi to back her up, and flew towards the monster, smacking into it, and using the shield for support, she flew high, and using another shield, she landed a blow that barely moved the monster. Eager to prove herself, Raphtalia charged at it. With a single stump, it caused the ground to erupt, but Raphtalia ran through the destruction. But now Fumi was wiped by its tail. With the monster before his eyes, he decided to unleash his rage shield, but a voice stopped him. Melty told him that a mysterious being had cast them into a magic field, and now Fumi thought they were trapped for good. Just then, several Philolials started running outside the forest to surround the dinosaur, and now Fumi wondered what the hell was happening. With the monster unrelenting, now Fumi tried activating his rage shield, but the mysterious voice warned him to be patient. As he demanded to know who it was, a large bird flew out of the water and landed before them. At the sight of it, they realized that it was the Philolial Queen. She told them to step back, willing to take on the beast, and asked it to leave immediately. However, it thought violence was the way, and began rushing towards her, but she merely kicked it, shocking everyone by her great power, and the beast stumbled back. As it unleashed a flame, the queen thought it was too weak and blocked it with a spell, but the force of the flame nearly blew everyone away. Ready to end it, the queen flashed past the dinosaur, killing it in that instant. With the monster dead, the queen told Naofumi that she wishes to speak with him, and immediately transformed into her humanoid form. She introduced herself as Fitoria, and told them that she is the queen of all the Philolials. After they introduced themselves to her, Naofumi asked her why she wishes to speak with him, so she suggested they leave for a suitable place. Naofumi told her that he would only leave after claiming his prize. Realizing he intends to claim a piece of the dinosaur, the queen told him that upgrading his skill with beast materials was a bad idea, as she could sense the curse powers inside his shield. Naofumi told her that these powers were saving him from getting his ass kicked, and put a piece of the monster inside his shield, activating a new skill instantly. Before long, they appeared in an old devastated city, and Fitoria told them that the former heroes lived here a few centuries ago, and had taken it for her new home. Since it was halfway across the world, Naofumi thought they would be safer here, and suggested getting some rest before offering to make dinner. However, that night, as they tried to eat, they found several Philolials before them, hungry for a taste of the soup, until eventually Naofumi agreed to make more for them. After the dinner, Fitoria told Naofumi that it was time to talk. As they began to stroll, she asked to know how the dinosaur was freed. But Naofumi was surprised by her words, and wondered why she came to their rescue in the first place if she didn't know already. She told him that she heard a new queen candidate was nearby and grew curious to meet her. Naofumi thought this candidate was Philo, and decided to ask why Philo was growing differently from the other Philolials. Fitoria told him that it was only possible because she was being raised by a hero. She told him that she was disappointed at all the heroes, having watched them squabble like useless losers. Naofumi tried telling her that everyone hates him even when he didn't do shit, but she told him to make peace with them, as the heroes were meant to be peaceful with each other. As they sat on a rooftop, she told him that the waves were appearing in other countries, and wondered why they were not defending them. Naofumi was shocked at this discovery, realizing that the waves also appear in other parts of the world. She told him that the heroes were originally meant to be summoned to other countries whenever the waves appear, but Naofumi was only hearing this for the first time. Fitoria told him that although she has no love for humans, she defends other parts of the world in honor of her hero. However, she couldn't keep defending the world on her own, and said that she needs the help of the heroes before the weight became too much to bear. Meanwhile, in the capital, Ren and Itsuki discovered a hidden passage inside the church, and thought some crucial secrets were being hidden here, having followed Naofumi's clue. Shortly, they arrived at an archive, and began to search for more clues. At the same time, Fitoria continued persuading Naofumi to make peace with the other heroes, saying that it was the only way to protect the world. Unwilling to change his mind, Naofumi told her that the other heroes hate his guts and have been trying to get rid of him from the start. Even so, Fitoria told him that heroes were never meant to be enemies, but Naofumi thought she was becoming annoying. Realizing his mind was made up, Fitoria told him that she has no other choice but to save the world by eliminating every one of them. So the following day, while they were having breakfast, Fitoria appeared before them, and trapped Melty inside a wind prison. When they wondered if she had lost her mind or something, she told them that she wishes to keep Melty as her hostage. Naofumi demanded to know what she wants, so she told him to reconcile with the others. However, Naofumi told her that he would not change his mind no matter how many times she tried to persuade him, and thought that her obsession to see them reconciled was becoming very annoying. She told him that he was giving her no other choice but to eliminate them all, so that new hero's country, and Raphtalia and Melty thanked her for the new wagon, as Philo claiming it as her own. Naofumi asked if another hero was close, so Fitoria told him that she could sense only one nearby, and asked him to protect Philo. As she waved them off, she grew sad at the thought of returning to her lonely, boring, useless, dejected life. After arriving outside the city, Raphtalia began to wonder how they would sneak inside and cross the border into a new country. Melty thought they were better off taking a detour, afraid that their discovery would only lead to chaos. However, Naofumi remembered that he had promised Fitoria he would make peace with the others, and told them that they must continue towards the checkpoint, hoping that Ren or Itsuki would be the hero inside the city, and thinking he just might be able to convince them that the princess set him up. As they began approaching the checkpoint, they found Motoyasu and several knights waiting for them. And Naofumi wondered why his ugly face was the one here, but knew that it was too late to turn around. At the checkpoint, Naofumi began telling the ugly, worthless loser that they had no intentions of fighting, but merely wished to be allowed through the gate. However, Motoyasu grew angry at his words, and struck with his spear, calling him the devil, and accused him of brainwashing Philo and Raphtalia with his shield. Now Fumi tried calling it bullshit, but he struck him with his spear. Now Fumi told him that he has no intentions of fighting him, but Matoyasu called him the demon he was summoned to destroy. Immediately, he unleashed a meteor thrust, but now Fumi shielded it, and the force nearly blew the girls away. However, when the dust cleared, now Fumi was still standing, and Matoyasu thought he was truly the devil for being so powerful. Now Fumi wondered why he was too stubborn to listen to anything he said, but Matoyasu blamed him for betraying the others and tried to split him in half. But now Fumi knocked off his spear and dodged a jab, realizing at once that Matoyasu truly intends to kill him. Matoyasu told him that he was bent on avenging Ren and Itsuki's death even if it meant living forever as the only surviving hero, and now Fumi was shocked by this discovery. Matoyasu said that he had come to avenge their deaths and would only leave after ripping off now Fumi's head like a f***ing doll. When Melty wondered how they died, the useless, ugly, hopeless moron accused now Fumi of brainwashing her, saying that it was the reason why she had no memories of it. Now Fumi told him that he was innocent and asked him to open his f***ing useless eyes, but Mine appeared at that moment, saying that a priest from the church had spotted him releasing a sealed monster into the town and killing the heroes while they were distracted. At that moment, now Fumi realized that Mine may have eliminated the heroes, but she cast a powerful energy that surrounded them with a lightning cage. As now Fumi blocked his spear, he shoved him back and trapped him inside a shield prison, but he destroyed it instantly. At now Fumi's command, Philo tried attacking him, but Mine began casting a spell, summoning a circle of flames and raining fireballs. But Melty cast a new spell and launched a water shield to douse the flames. Immediately, Philo began charging at Matoyasu and jumped to take him down, but Mine's assistant cast a tornado that she managed to dodge, transforming herself, and jumped away from Matoyasu's strike. At once, she lunged at him with her golden claws, knocking him away, and Raphtalia thought she was impressive. Unwilling to surrender, he stuck the ground, drawing energy for his meteor thrust, and flung the wind saucer. At once, a powerful light shot at now Fumi, and Matoyasu began firing Chaos Spear. When he asked for support, Mine and her backup unleashed a powerful combo of fire and wind, and Matoyasu was certain that now Fumi could not possibly survive this attack. So he unleashed the Burst Flame Lance at now Fumi, and Mine's backup cast a tornado to stop Raphtalia, but Melty doused it with water and drenched everyone. At that moment, now Fumi realized that a combo skill of their own had been activated. Matoyasu told Raphtalia to abandon now Fumi because his own harem wasn't big enough, but she drew her sword and started casting a spell as she ran towards him. Now Fumi cast a hiding shield to protect her, and as the air shield appeared, it turned into a monster shield and swallowed him, but he managed to push it away. As Matoyasu charged again, now Fumi caught his spear, allowing Philo to kick him away. With Mine in shock, Raphtalia snuck up before her and slashed her with her invisible sword, saying that now Fumi was practically unstoppable. Without hesitating, Philo and Melty started casting a spell and unleashed a combined wind and water attack that blew their enemies away and dropped them like flies. Matoyasu wondered how they were so strong, even though they had not upgraded their class. So now Fumin told him that while he was idling around and playing simp for the ugly evil psychopath Mine, they were acquiring actual skills from real battles and fighting monsters of every kind. They tried everything they could to survive, and told him to accept that he was a sore shit-faced loser. Even so, Matoyasu just didn't know when to quit, and began saying that his determination to kill now Fumi was as solid as ever, and that it was the only way to restore peace to the world. But now Fumi thought he was totally hopeless. At that moment, Philo sensed a great danger, and Raphtalia realized that all the soldiers had vanished. Immediately, Philo began kicking the worthless losers, and told now Fumi to cast his shield prison over everyone before they were all sent to the great beyond, so he summoned the prison at that instant. However, Philo thought it was not enough, so he summoned 2 air shields over the prison, and the others wondered if there was a killer eclipse or something. Before they knew it, a mighty flame descended on the shield with enough fire to burn their bones to dust, and they screamed, realizing this might be their end. The mighty inferno destroyed the air shields, toasting the prison like a walnut inside a furnace, and their lives flashed before their eyes. Just then, the fires cracked the shield, but now Fumi managed to protect everyone, and screamed from all the burning pain before the fires eventually vanished, leaving a gaping hole in the ground. At once, now Fumi fell from exhaustion, but realized that everyone was safe. As they wondered what the f just happened, a mysterious man appeared before them, applauding them for surviving the high-class multicaster ritual magic judgment, and they discovered that he was the Pope from the church. With Naofumi in shock, the Pope told him that he came to punish him for showing no gratitude after receiving the holy water for Raphtalia's illness, and blamed him for allowing the people to abandon their country. He said that he had come to purify him in the name of God, but Mine wondered why she should suffer the consequences of his sins, calling herself their future queen. However, the Pope wasn't giving two shits about her, and said that the shield hero would be blamed for all of their deaths. He said that they've made arrangements for a new government to take the place of the royal family, as they had abused their power and disrespected the church, and he thought they definitely deserved to be replaced. As for the heroes, he said that Matoyasu was the most useless of them all, blaming him for releasing a monster fruit to terrorize a village, and said that Ren had caused several deaths when he allowed a dragon's corpse to rot, and that even Itsuki had hidden away from his duty to help the people after slaying their lord. He thought they were all fakes for having caused much trouble when they should be saviors, and decided to vote himself judge and executioner. Matoyasu told him that he tried to help the people, but the Pope said he was a no-good, disgusting bummer that was a great embarrassment to his family, and said that he had eliminated the other heroes for poking their ugly noses where it did not belong, calling it God's judgment. Hearing his words, Matoyasu realized that Naofumi was truly innocent after all. But the Pope thought he had never seen a worse moron than him, and as he received a sword, he began declaring a purification of holy judgment on everyone, ready to isekai their asses with another massive flame. As he raised the sword, it began to glow with a golden light, but as he unleashed it, Naofumi managed to shield the flaming light until it vanished. The Pope said that it was a mere test of his strength, and promised to annihilate him in his next attempt. Before their eyes, the sword upgraded to a spear, and they wondered how much power it possesses. Melty told them that the weapon was a replica of the ancient four cardinal weapons, which the king's army had tried to duplicate from the weapons of the legendary heroes, and successfully made into one weapon that could switch shapes and use the powers of all legendary weapons. However, after this weapon was created, it mysteriously vanished a few centuries ago, never to be seen until this very day. Naofumi wondered why they were summoned to fight the waves when they already had a powerful weapon. So Melty told him that the weapon consumes a massive amount of mana, and could only be used with an army of followers that were releasing their mana into it. Impressed by her words, the Pope said that she was truly deserving to be next in line to the throne, and said that Mine was too worthless to become queen because she was more brain dead than a cold hard body in the ground. Matoyasu vowed to avenge the slain heroes, and cast a lightning spear to end him, but it struck a barrier, and Naofumi realized that the only way to defeat the Pope was to take out all his supporters, because without their mana, his weapon was an empty instrument. Realizing he was too useless on his own, Matoyasu asked for Naofumi's support, and his harem began to cast another magical combo, but Philo wondered if they hid their brains at home or something. Just then, they prepared the wind and fire combo, and Matoyasu launched the combined blast at the Pope, but even this could not penetrate the barrier, and the Pope wondered if he had any other secret move. Desperate to prove himself, Matoyasu prepared a new attack, and hurled a meteor thrust on top of him, but the barrier was there to stop it. The Pope told them that his barrier was impregnable, but the followers began to pass out from exhaustion, and he told them that it was his turn to attack. At once, he cast a flame around them, and Naofumi realized that he can't shield a full power attack, and thought this was definitely the end of them. Raising his spear, the Pope told them that he was ready to bring God's judgment upon them, but light arrows flew at him, and began nailing the barrier until it shattered. At that moment, Ren and Itsuki appeared before them, glad to have made it in time, so they slid down into the hole, and everyone was surprised to see them alive. As Ren stabbed the ground, he launched several light swords at the Pope, but could not get past the barrier, so the Pope commanded that half of his followers should focus on protecting him. Itsuki launched light arrows at the barrier, but it was indestructible. Matoyasu wondered how they were even alive, so Ren told him that when they began to investigate the church, they found a secret file in the cathedral's archive that led them to a hidden cave where they had hoped to find the replica of the cardinal weapons. However, it was only a trap from the church to annihilate them for being nosy, and they only managed to escape with the help of the Shadows, who were the secret agents working for the queen, and Naofumi was surprised that they were equally spying on the others. Itsuki told Naofumi that he was set up by the church, but Naofumi wondered when he finally grew a brain to realize this, and Matoyasu said that he has bad luck for getting framed. But Naofumi thought his face was bad luck. Itsuki suggested they work together, so Ren charged at the Pope, and he cast a flame to stop him. Luckily, he jumped over it, rushing forward, and Itsuki fired a meteor shot that broke through every single layer of his wall, allowing Ren to fly high and land a meteor slash, draining all the mana in his weapon. Ren told them that the Queen's forces would soon arrive, and Itsuki told the Pope to surrender his weapon immediately. As his followers began to cower in fear, the Pope told them that they were fighting for God against the devil, and that the Queen's forces were basically irrelevant in the sight of God. So his followers began confessing their desire for him, and the heroes wondered if they had been brainwashed or something. With no other choice but to fight, Itsuki and Ren suggested that they form one unified team, but soon realized that Naofumi was making a plan of his own with his harem. Ren wondered why he was staying away from them, so Naofumi told them that he wishes to have nothing to do with them for betraying him. Madoyasu wondered if he had lost his mind, but Naofumi told him to f*** off, and said that his face looks worse than a blank map. Itsuki wondered if they could win while fighting apart, but Naofumi told him that it doesn't matter the tiniest bit as his team were survivors. Madoyasu told him that they have a higher chance of dying, and thought Naofumi's name would be dragged in the mud after his demise. Hearing his words, Raphtalia called him a useless lowlife for attacking Naofumi only a moment ago, and Philo thought he was very useless and annoying. Naofumi began telling him that he was a worthless simp that allowed himself to be controlled by Mine and the church. Mine tried defending herself, saying that she was totally innocent of everything, but Melty said that she was no worse than the devil. Madoyasu tried saying that he was only trusting in his party member, but Naofumi said that it was even worse, because then he could not think on his own, and that he only made their situation worse. Ren and Itsuki tried asking Naofumi to cut him some slack, but he said that they were no better than even he was, and blamed Ren for slaying a dragon and allowing the rotten flesh to nearly wipe out a village because he thought this was a f***ing video game. At the same time, he blamed Itsuki for turning into a secret vigilante and abandoning a village to starve after executing their lord. Immediately, Melty cast a water shield to protect him, and he told her to do the same for Raphtalia and Philo, before telling the others that their recklessness has caused the church to take justice into their own hands. When Itsuki wondered what Naofumi had been doing for so long, Philo told them that he has been cleaning up after their mess. Naofumi told them that they were useless and said that if it was totally up to them, they would have lost the battle to the Soul Eater in the previous wave. Just then, the Pope began calling them a disgraceful disaster, and that they all deserved to enter Nirvana at the same time. Before their eyes, he began to draw all the mana from his followers, but Naofumi shielded everyone from the golden light as the ground erupted around them. However, when the dust cleared, Naofumi stayed on his feet. He told the other heroes that they were no different from the Pope, and called them ugly-ass bummers for trying to take Raphtalia away from him. However, he remembered his promise to Fitoria, so he told them that he would only work with them to take down this enemy, and would ditch them afterwards, so they all readied themselves to battle the Pope together. As the followers began casting a spell at the same time, the Pope summoned the multi-caster defense magic. Before their eyes, a dark smoke rose high above them like a mighty eclipse and began stretching over the whole, turning into a mysterious cathedral. And the Pope told them that this was the end of the road for them, as it was a one-way ticket from here on to the afterlife. Determined to defeat the Pope, Ren and Itsuki unleashed a combined attack that destroyed the ground, flying towards him and shattering the barrier. As Philo and Raphtalia prepared to attack, he cast a flame at them, but Philo evaded it with her quick flash and broke another wall, allowing Raphtalia to lunge with her sword, but he backed away, and all the energy from his followers restored him. However, Naofumi would not quit and immediately suggested another attack. At his command, Philo snatched up Madoyasu, and Melty doused a flame with an attack of her own. While charging towards their enemy, Naofumi told Madoyasu to attack him when they were close, and Philo flung him high up. As Naofumi followed, Madoyasu smacked his shield, and a flame burst before him as he unleashed it towards the Pope, hoping to obliterate him. However, he was unscathed, and told Naofumi that no curse spells could attack him within the cathedral. So he blew them away with a mighty wind, and told the priest that he needs every ounce of their mana. The priest told him that his followers had given their all and were close to entering Nirvana, but the Pope thought it was a worthy sacrifice for God, and told him that their deaths would be the greatest honor of their worthless lives. So the priest screamed for them to continue, and as they did, Raphtalia wondered if they were blind or just too useless to discover that they were being used like worthless trash. Just then, they started passing out from exhaustion, but their mana sealed up the cathedral. Realizing a powerful attack was about to come, Madoyasu wondered if Naofumi has a special skill to stop the attack. At that moment, the curse series appeared before his eyes, and he thought it was their only hope, so he activated it at that instant. As he appeared in the curse realm, the spirit of the dragon appeared before his eyes, and the curse covered him with armor. At the same time, the dragon's rage tried to take control of his mind, revealing the betrayal to increase his anger as armor continued appearing on his body. As the dragon offered to bestow him with all his power, now Fumi realized it intends to take complete control over his mind. But the armor fueled his desire even more. At that moment, the rage took over him, and as he started heading towards the Pope, the other heroes wondered if the devil had taken over his body. At the same time, flames began oozing from his armor, and he realized he could destroy all of his enemies. But his body got frozen in that moment, and Raphtalia's voice began screaming for him. However, his anger grew worse, and he wished he could destroy her, but saw Philo instead, and her voice brought back his good memories. So as he kept seeing all the times they traveled together, the flames began extinguishing from his shield. At that moment, their spirits entered his body, and he realized they got burned while holding him back. Glad to be restored, he decided to ask for support from the other heroes and suggested a plan. Just then, lights dispelled from the roof as the Pope raised a sword to absorb the mana. As he began saying that their end has come, he pointed the sword and launched an energy blast, but now Fumi managed to shield it. At his command, they prepared for their attack, so Itsuki launched his thunder shot that turned into lightning, but his barrier shielded the blast. Immediately, he fired a wind arrow, and the girls supported him with their combined attack. As his barrier repelled the attacks, Philo appeared before his eyes, but he evaded her and blocked Raphtalia's sword. As he tried saying he was unkillable, Ren appeared from behind and slashed him with his meteor sword. At that moment, Mine cast an enhanced spell on Moroyasu, and he launched his airstrike javelin at the Pope. As he cast a set of shields to stop it, it destroyed them and pierced his heart, so Moroyasu thought he was wounded. Immediately, now Fumi charged with Philo, and as the Pope launched a flaming bird at them, Philo jumped over it. Together, they cast Wrath Fire spell, and as the shield sucked in the flaming bird, it sent a fire dragon at the Pope, burning him at that instant. Hoping to end him for good, they started charging towards him, but he revived from the fire. And as Moroyasu unleashed Chaos Spear, the Pope activated the State of Emptiness, blocking the attack, and sent it back to them. Immediately, Ren tried to slay him, but he blocked his strikes and blasted him away. As Moroyasu wondered how he managed to survive, the Pope began saying that he was ready to cleanse them from their sins, and transformed the staff into a bow. As he fired at the dark orb, the bright light nearly blinded their vision. Just then, his image appeared around the cathedral, launching arrows at the same time, and eventually blasting now Fumi. The sight of all the images terrified the girls, and they tried to dodge the arrows. But when now Fumi realized that Raphtalia was a target, he tried to protect her, but an arrow blasted him, and another pierced her. Even so, he tried to protect her, but as the Pope prepared a golden arrow, the Queen arrived, and cast a spell from the outside. Immediately, the ground froze up and trapped the Pope in an icicle prison, weakening the cathedral at that moment. The Pope wondered how her spell penetrated the cathedral, but now Fumi realized their opportunity and activated blood sacrifice. At that moment, his tomato sauce spilled outside, and the Pope thought he was about to die from his own curse, so he broke the ice and was ready to send him off to Nirvana. Just then, the ground opened, and a monster emerged outside, catching him in its jaws. As the Pope began screaming for help, his staff broke in half, and it consumed him at once, destroying his existence, before returning into the ground. At that moment, the cathedral began to dispel, and the Queen appeared before the followers, commanding them to surrender at once. However, now Fumi had already fallen unconscious, and the girls thought he was going to die. But the Queen promised to save him. As he wondered who she was, she told him that she's the queen of their country. A few days later, as he regained consciousness, the girls were excited to see him alive, but he wondered how he managed to survive. Later that day, as the Queen visited him, she decided to introduce herself again. But now Fumi thought her presence was irrelevant, seeing as everyone hates him anyway. Realizing he was still scarred by the memory of being set up, the Queen promised to explain everything to him. So that evening on the balcony, she began saying that Mine and the king were a useless, disgusting bunch, who betrayed the other countries by summoning all 4 heroes instead of 1. Their action had nearly caused a war, but she managed to restore peace with the other countries. However, now Fumi thought her words were irrelevant, and wondered why he has been hated from the very start. So the Queen revealed that the previous shield hero had committed atrocities, and that the sin was being taken out on him. At this realization, now Fumi revealed that he was better off heading for another country, but she promised to clear his name and announce him as a true hero. When they were finally alone, she decided to invite him to the royal castle, saying that she wishes to clear his name before the entire city, and to punish Mine and the king for their crimes. However, as Naofumi slept that night, he dreamt of their execution, and wondered if it was the right thing to do. The following day in the castle, as Naofumi came across the other moronic heroes, Motoyasu began wondering if Mine has left the city, but Itsuki thought she was preparing a special gift for their bravery. However, when they appeared before the queen, they began wondering where she was. As they realized she's been arrested along with the king, the other heroes began wondering if the queen has lost her mind. But she revealed that they were criminals, and began saying that they would be trialed for their crimes. With everyone in shock, the king began saying that she has been brainwashed by the shield hero, but she silenced him with her icicle prison, and said that it was impossible. To get the entire truth out of Mine, the queen decided to form a slave contract with her, so they began drawing a slave crest around her disgusting cannons, sealing the contract at that instant. A few minutes later, as the trial finally began, the queen started accusing Mine of working with the church to kill the heroes, but as she tried denying her claims, the crest electrocuted her body. However, she was desperate to prove her innocence, and began saying that the church tried to eliminate her with the rest of them. But the queen wasn't done, and demanded to know why she tried to kill her own sister and blame the shield hero for her death. As she tried saying it wasn't true, the crest electrocuted her again, and everyone realized she'd been lying about everything this entire time. Just then, the other heroes realized she really tried to kill Melty, having seen her with their own eyes. As the queen wondered why the king summoned all 4 heroes when they were supposed to summon only one of them, he began saying that it was the only way to save their country, and said that Naofumi was a worse criminal that deserves to be executed. At that moment, the queen decided to ask Mine if Naofumi had tried to develop plot with her on their first night. As she said that he did, the crest burned her cannons for being a terrible liar, and they all realized that Naofumi was in nonsense this entire time. With Motoyasu convinced she was telling the truth, he decided to form his own slave contract with her, and asked if Naofumi truly developed plot with her. As she tried telling the same disgusting lie, the crest burned her once again. However, the king was certain that Naofumi was sent by the devil, and began saying that he was a disaster that should be executed immediately. At that moment, the queen realized he would always hate Naofumi no matter what, and commanded for their execution. A few minutes later, the knights were ready to execute them, and Naofumi realized he had dreamt of this exact moment. As the queen commanded their immediate execution, the knights prepared to end them, but Naofumi wondered if it was the right thing to do. As Mine grew desperate, she started begging Motoyasu for his help, but he only looked away. Right then, the queen raised her hand, and the knights were ready to slash the ropes, but Mine began screaming for Naofumi to rescue her, and he thought she really meant it. So he screamed for the queen to withhold her command, and began saying that a quick execution was not enough for the low lives. But the queen was relieved by his interference. She had no desire to slay her family, so instead, she announced that her daughter's new name would be Bitch from now on, and that even the church's crest would be changed. Hearing her words, the people thought it was the right thing to do, and began throwing away the church's crest. As Naofumi began to leave the arena, the other heroes tried asking him to stay for the festival, and the queen told him to remain in the country. However, Naofumi had already made up his mind to leave, but revealed that he would fight for them when the waves arrive. As he left, Melty wondered why he didn't bid her goodbye, and thought he was a moron, but the queen nearly passed out. When Melty wondered if she was growing sick, she revealed that Naofumi saved her from hugging the ground, as she would have ended herself instead of her family. She had intentionally put up the show to make up for his humiliation, but had no true desire to end their lives. Meanwhile, Naofumi and the girls had already arrived at the gates, but the people decided to bid him goodbye, and the knights formed a honor guard as they passed through. Seeing how the others honored him, and remembering how he was nearly kicked out the last time, he decided that he would continue fighting the waves until he returns to his world. A few days later, as they arrived at the church, they discovered the crest has been changed to the symbol of the 4 cardinal heroes. Inside the church, as they decided to upgrade their class, a golden light shined on them, and the system revealed that the class upgrade process was initiated. At that moment, the girls unlocked new abilities, but as they appeared at the palace later that day, Naofumi told the queen that the girls weren't able to choose the skills they wanted, and thought there must have been an interference. When he wondered why she summoned them, she told him that she intends to throw a party, and to have a meeting with all the heroes. That evening, as they were about to leave the castle, Naofumi apologized to the girls for their disappointing class upgrade and said that he wishes to leave them with overpowered skills when he returns to his world. However, his words made Raphtalia sad, and she realized she would be hopeless when he was gone. At the party that night, she remained sad at the thought, but Melty spotted Mine sneaking into the kitchens at the same time. Just then, a knight slammed their table and began saying that her ugly wolf face was ruining his appetite, and that the shield hero was a disgrace to their realm. Angered by his words, Raphtalia told him to shut his filthy, disgusting mouth, and was ready to slay him at that moment. Meanwhile, in the kitchens, Mine began dripping her purple liquid into Naofumi's food, hoping to send him off to another isekai. But Melty caught her in the act and vowed to screw her over this time. Inside a private room, the queen told the heroes that Kalmyra, an island for slaying monsters and gaining XP, would be activated soon. However, Melty appeared at that moment and told her about Mine's attempt to poison Naofumi. The queen was already sick of the useless girl and suggested that the heroes settle their conflict immediately, seeing as their quarrels were stopping them from leveling up. As she suggested that they make peace and exchange secrets, the other heroes thought it was unnecessary and tried saying that they were better off separated. However, when the queen told them that they would be wiped out in the next waves, they realized they were running out of time. As Itsuki decided to make the first attempt, he wondered how Naofumi managed to acquire the cheat shield. Meanwhile, Raphtalia was ready to slay the shit-faced knight as he continued calling the shield hero a worthless loser. Inside the private room, Naofumi began saying that the shield was not a hidden cheat skill, but that he managed to acquire it from slaying different monsters. However, to reveal how he did so, he said that they must first reveal their own special skills. So Motoyasu decided to reveal the copy skill, saying that it clones any similar weapon he touches. But Naofumi wondered how he never figured it out. As Itsuki began saying that he could only get stronger by developing rare weapons, Ren said that skillful weapons were better, but Motoyasu said that weapon stats are more important. As they continued arguing, with none of them willing to surrender, Naofumi grew tired of their disgusting faces. On the other hand, Raphtalia and the knight continued their battle, and as she knocked his head with her sword, she was ready to end his life. At the same time, the heroes had grown angry, and Motoyasu was ready to knock out Ren's face. But having seen enough, Naofumi called them the most useless heroes in the world, and decided to leave. That night, as he decided to check the system, the skill unlocked before his eyes, and he realized the copy skill was real after all. So when he met the queen the following morning, he decided to ask about the heroes, but she told him that they left already, and were heading for Kalmyra to level up before the next waves. As they left the palace, they decided to visit the blacksmith's shop, so Naofumi began to copy every shield in sight. But the man thought he was trying to bankrupt him. By the time he was done, he promised to pay him back for stealing his work. But the smith knew he was a worthless, disgusting brokey that couldn't even afford his next meal. That evening, as they stopped by Raphtalia's village, she decided to pay her last respects to her dead friend. And Naofumi realized her village was a mess. He wondered if it could ever be rebuilt, and thought the rest of her clan may never return forever. As they were about to leave, Raphtalia told Naofumi to never abandon her, as she would be useless without him. So as he sensed the pain in her soul, Naofumi promised to stay with them forever, but thought he must give them a purpose before leaving. The following day, as they arrived at the shore, they discovered that the ship had not departed, and realized that they weren't late after all. A few hours later, as the ship sailed towards Kalmyra, two adventurers introduced themselves as Lark and Therese. But when they realized that Raphtalia could not understand a word they said, Therese decided to use a spell translator. As she wondered if they intend to level up at Kalmyra, Lark suggested they join forces and level up together. But Naofumi thought they were too mysterious. As the captain invited him to the deck, saying that his presence would motivate the crew, Naofumi realized that the other useless heroes have grown seasick, and were looking worse than shit. As Itsuki wondered how he was the only exception, Ren thought he was being protected by his shield. However, Naofumi thought they deserve exactly what they got for being weak and disgusting. Just then, a large fish fell on the ship, and Philo kicked another, nearly crushing the ugly, useless Mine as she called it their dinner. Before long, the adventurers appeared before him, so Therese asked him to craft her a jewel, giving him a rare crystal. As Naofumi realized it would definitely be useful even for him, he agreed to work on it. By the time they arrived on the Kalmyra Islands, the other heroes had grown worse with the sickness and were carried off on a stretcher. At the sight of this, the governor welcomed only the shield hero, and gave them a tour of the islands. At the end of the day, as they observed an ancient statue, Raphtalia noticed an epigraph written by a former cardinal hero. Realizing it was a magical inscription, now Fumi cast a spell to decipher the message, and released it as energy on Philo. At that moment, she realized she had grown stronger and easily jumped higher than the statue. Just then, the adventurers arrived, saying that they've been searching for them. When now Fumi wondered why they couldn't mind their f***ing business, Lark revealed that he was hoping they would level up together. However, now Fumi thought they were a pair of useless slowpokes, and threatened to ditch their ass if they tried to slow him down. That evening, as now Fumi and his girls began destroying slimes, he realized the monsters have a high XP. But Raphtalia thought they were far too weak. Just as he discovered they weren't gaining any more XP for the slimes they slayed, an arrow pierced one of the slimes, and Itsuki appeared before their eyes, blaming him for his failure to acquire any XP. Just then, the other heroes appeared, and Ren began saying that this was now his territory. As the worthless losers started another shitty argument, now Fumi realized he couldn't stand their useless faces and decided to leave. So they crossed to another island and managed to defeat a bull monster, gaining over 3000 EXP. As Raphtalia revealed that her sword was growing dull and thought their power levels must have outgrown their weapons, now Fumi decided to put a piece of the monster into his shield. And at that moment, new weapons appeared before them. That night, as they rested by the fire, the adventurers appeared from the bushes, and Lark began saying that they've been searching for them. When now Fumi wondered why they were so concerned, Lark called them his companions, and said that now Fumi was his bro. But the shield hero was ready to knock his teeth out with a blow.
Now listen! That's called motherfucking bars, you know nothing about that!
However, they decided to head into the town, and began celebrating their successes with a feast. And as the PG grape juice got into their system, Raphtalia and the worthless knight decided to test their strengths, but she easily overpowered him. Deciding to let loose, now Fumi began to eat wine berries, but as the dumbass Motoyasu took a taste of it, his mouth began foaming, and they realized he was just a weak hero. The next day, as now Fumi gave Therese a bracelet he made from her crystal, he discovered she was in love with it, and she thanked him for making something so special. For his payment, she decided to give him a bag of coins, and he wondered if her father was the richest man alive. As they arrived on an island to slay new monsters, a bunch of evil penguins appeared before them, so Lark cast a slash to destroy them. As one flew at him, now Fumi smacked it away, so Lark flew high into the air and slayed the rest of them. Immediately, Therese cast a spell with the new bracelet and launched a fireball to destroy another penguin, so they began slaying the rest of them. Before long, they came across another set of monsters, so now Fumi suggested a plan. As he rushed out, he drew their attention with Hate Reaction spell and began fighting them off. At that moment, Therese cast a spell and unleashed fire on them. However, now Fumi was unscathed, and he realized the curse from the blood sacrifice has been wiped away from his body. When they returned to the town that evening, now Fumi wondered if they would join his team the next day, but Lark gave him a hard pass, and they began to leave. Now Fumi thought they were truly mysterious, but suggested they take the following day off. As he rested on the beach the next day, Philo told him that she found a small island at the bottom of the sea, so now Fumi decided to see for himself. Before long, they began swimming deep towards the bottom, and soon arrived at a door. With a touch, he managed to open it, and they shortly emerged from the water. As they decided to look around, Raphtalia summoned First Light, and it illuminated the place. Just then, they discovered a dragon hourglass before them, and as they wondered if it was a real one, his shield began to glow, and he realized the waves would arrive in 2 days. After this discovery, they managed to warn the queen just in time, and by the third day, they sailed out on their ships, waiting to be teleported to the site once the waves arrive. When Raphtalia wondered if the Kalmyra Islands would be safe, the queen revealed that all the people have been evacuated already. Right then, they spotted Lark and Therese on a separate ship, and now Fumi was glad to have them close, realizing they were more reliable than the other useless heroes. At that moment, the sand ran out in the dragon hourglass, and they teleported at the same time. Before their eyes, monsters started emerging from the portals, so the knights tossed barrels of cask bombs into the sea, and they exploded at that instant. As the beasts appeared on the surface, the archers began launching arrows at them. Just then, a large sea monster began approaching the ships, so Itsuki launched Meteor Shot, but it dived into the water. Before they knew it, it wrecked one of the ships, and as now Fumi discovered they couldn't defeat it underwater, he dived deep inside with Philo. Just as he spotted it, he cast Hate Reaction spell and successfully drew its attention. So as he lured it out of the water, the other heroes launched a combined attack, but it didn't even scratch the beast. Immediately, it unleashed an energy blast that destroyed another ship, and the queen wondered if they stood a chance in this battle. As Raphtalia spotted the monster, she fired a spear into its body, and now Fumi realized her attacks have grown more powerful ever since she leveled up. At the same time, the knights continued throwing casks into the sea and fired arrows at the lesser monsters, but another blast destroyed yet another ship. As the beasts began climbing up the ship, the men ran for their lives, but Melty cast a spell and blasted them with Aqua Shot. Right then, a monster flew at her and tried to pull her into the sea, but she managed to hold on for dear life. But as she began to fall, Lark slayed the beast and returned her to the ship. As the other monsters flew at him, he unleashed a mighty tornado that destroyed them at the same time. Immediately, now Fumi called for his help in killing the sea monster, so as he dived into the water with Philo, they flew outside, luring the monster out again. At once, Lark cast the tornado and managed to slash the monster, so Philo followed with a swift kick, and as she bounced off the rope ladder, she pierced it with a spiral strike. So it wouldn't recover, Therese unleashed Thunderstorm, and Lark cast a tornado in a combo attack, killing the monster at that instant. With the monster finally dead, the weak worthless heroes arrived, and Itsuki began saying that the special items from the slain beasts belonged to them. Hearing his words, Lark began wondering if they were truly heroes, as he thought they were weaker than his 90-year-old grandma. He thought they were definitely a joke, and blasted them away with his wind. But now Fumi managed to resist it. As he wondered if Lark has lost his mind, Lark decided to reveal that they are also heroes from an isekai, and said that they must eliminate him to save their own world. With their world close to being destroyed, Therese revealed that they could only save it if they killed him and allow the waves to destroy this world, so Lark challenged him to a battle. At the sight of this, the queen realized they are enemies, and commanded her men to eliminate them. Just then, the heroes attacked Lark at the same time, but he kicked their ass easily, and Therese cast a spell to block the archer's arrows. As she unleashed a mighty wind, she cast another spell and summoned meteor shower on the ships. However, when they noticed the ships were burning, Therese cast a new spell that summoned the rain, quenching the fires at that moment. At the sight of this, now Fumi wondered if they are really his enemies, but Lark told Raphtalia and Philo to step aside from the battle. However, they would not back away, but were determined to fight for their master. As Lark smacked now Fumi's shield, the girls attacked him at once, but he stopped them with his scythe, and blew them with a mighty wind. As he tried to end her, now Fumi blocked his attack, and his monster shield devoured his weapon, but Lark jumped away. Unwilling to surrender, he smacked his shield, and the impact injured his shoulder. So Raphtalia began attacking him with continued strikes, but now Fumi wondered how he got wounded. Immediately, Therese unleashed fire on him, but it dispelled on his shield, and she realized that her magic bracelet has no desire to harm him, so she switched to another. To prepare for their next attack, now Fumi gave the girls a reviving potion, but Lark told him that this was a fight to the death. Just then, Melty arrived to support them in the battle. In an instant, Lark nearly sliced now Fumi and blocked Philo's claw, but as he attacked again, a snake bit him from the shield. As Therese launched a fire at the snake, Melty doused it with water. At that moment, Raphtalia activated illusion magic, but as he dodged Philo's attack, an airstrike shield appeared and monsters bit his hands. Immediately, Melty and Philo unleashed a combined attack that blew him away, and another shield knocked him to the ground, allowing Raphtalia to slash his arm. Just as she tried to slay him, Therese launched a fireball at her, but now Fumi protected her just in time. However, as he discovered Lark was still standing, he realized they are both very strong, and thought they are definitely heroes from an isekai. In an instant, a light destroyed one of the ships, and glass appeared before their eyes. At the sight of her, now Fumi realized their battle was about to get worse, but wondered why she was on their side. Just then, Glass cast a spell and fanned powerful winds towards him, but as he remained on his feet, she unleashed Shellcracker, but he resisted her attack. As she noticed his shield, she told her men that he wasn't even using his full powers, and said that she was impressed with his new strength. However, she thought this was exactly why he must be killed, and prepared herself for another attack. In an instant, she nearly slashed his face, but as he blocked her next attack, his shield transformed to Soul Eater, but she jumped away at once. Realizing she was afraid of this shield, now Fumi thought he could defeat her. At that moment, Therese began casting a spell and activated a bomb, but now Fumi's barrier withstood the explosion. Immediately, Glass prepared a new attack, and Therese cast a new spell, but as now Fumi summoned a shield prison. Their combined attacks merely destroyed his barrier. Shocked by the sight, Glass realized he has grown twice as powerful as the last time. But now Fumi was certain that he could defeat her, so he commanded the girls to take on the others, and hurried away, jumping onto another ship. But Glass followed him. As he wondered if she was also a summoned hero, she told him that she was, and said that she's the fan hero. On the other ship, as Therese unleashed blue flames, Melty doused it with water drops. So Lark tried to slay her, but Philo landed before him, and Raphtalia smacked his weapon, forcing him to retreat. At the same time, now Fumi dodged Glass's attacks, and was certain that he could really defeat her. So as she blasted him with Shell Cracker, monsters lunged at her from his shield, but as they retreated, it transformed into Soul Eater, and began sucking up her life force. Realizing he's discovered her weakness, now Fumi began telling her to surrender before the wave was over, but she told him that it would only be over when one of them was dead. Determined not to surrender, she smacked his shield, but he began absorbing her life force again. However, he was unwilling to kill her, but she vowed to return on every single wave until she kills him, as she revealed that it was the only way to save her world. Now Fumi began wondering if he could kill her to save this world. At that moment, he passed through time and discovered that her world was also being attacked by the waves. As she revealed that there could only be one winner, she drank a soothing potion, and now Fumi realized her strength had revived. Without hesitating, she rushed at him and smacked his shield, sending him crashing away. At the sight of this, Raphtalia jumped over to the ship and managed to block her next attack. When now Fumi wondered why she came, she reminded him that she is his sword and said that she would never abandon him. As Glass tried to end her, now Fumi repelled her with his airstrike shield. Immediately, he changed his shield and unleashed flames on her, but she managed to survive the fires. With the waves nearly over, Glass prepared to unleash her greatest attack, so now Fumi switched to his death shield, saying that he would protect this world for the sake of everyone he loves. But just as he was about to activate the blood sacrifice, hoping to destroy Glass at once, a new girl arrived from Mitsuki's party and cast a spell that launched casks into the air. At the sight of them, now Fumi changed his shield and destroyed them instantly. As the grape juice rained on Glass, it drained her energy, but as she tried continuing the fight, her companions stopped her. As the wave was nearly over, Lark realized their opportunity was gone, so they began ascending and vanished instantly. At that moment, the wave disappeared, and as the world's most useless heroes regained consciousness, the Queen announced their victory. Later that day, with peace restored, now Fumi and the girls decided to fish in the river, glad to take a break from their training. And as they returned to the islands, Raphtalia wondered what now Fumi intends to do in the meantime, so he revealed that he would prepare for the next wave. However, he didn't know if he could annihilate Glass and her companions if he comes across them again. The following day, as they were ready to leave, the Queen thanked now Fumi for helping them fight off the waves, and promised to reward him. So a few days later, as now Fumi rode into Raphtalia's village, she discovered that they were starting to rebuild it, and was happy to be reunited with her friends. As she tried asking now Fumi how he managed to pull it off, he told her that he asked to be the lord over this region as his reward for fighting off the waves. As he decided to lead her into the village, he showed her the new library, and she realized that the village was starting to get filled up again. However, when they arrived on the rooftop, she began to cry, realizing he was about to return to his own world. As she began saying that her life would be worthless and meaningless without his presence, she begged him to stay even after the waves were completely gone. She had figured out that he was trying to give her a purpose before returning to his world, but said that the only purpose she desires was to stay by his side forever. Realizing she means every single word, now Fumi agreed to stay, seeing as his life here was better than the real world he came from anyway. And as the good memories flashed across his mind, he told her that the village would be their new home, and hoped that she would be the sheath where he stuck his massive sword every night. At that moment, Philo arrived and decided to join the hug. Before long, they watched as the flag was raised in the village, and now Fumi was glad to see Raphtalia's dream come true. Set your heart ablaze, go beyond your limits, and watch this next video.